Hello, everyone, and welcome. Before we begin, take a moment to like, comment, and share this video, but only if you truly enjoy this journey. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from, what time it is there, and which country you're listening from. I'd love to see how far our little story travels tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a soft fan to create a gentle hum in the background, and settle into your bed. Close your eyes if you wish and breathe slowly. Tonight, we travel far back in time, to ancient Greece, somewhere in the 5th century BC. Imagine the soft morning light filtering through the small, simple windows of a modest stone house. The smells of baking bread and olive oil drift gently through the air, inviting you to rise. You awaken, but this is no ordinary morning. There are no phones, no coffee machines. Instead, your first thought is of the household gods, watching quietly from a small shrine in the corner of your room. You pour a tiny libation of wine or water, whispering a prayer for protection. The gods are everywhere, their eyes upon you, and even a small misstep could bring misfortune. Stepping outside, the narrow streets are already alive. Merchants call to one another, children chase each other with wooden toys, and every stone, every corner carries signs of divine presence. You pause at a roadside shrine, bow slightly, and continue, feeling the weight of a world in which mortals must honor gods, lest calamity strike. And so your day begins, in a city where every action is a dance between human life and divine expectation. Stepping further into the streets, you notice the city alive with movement. Men in simple tunics hurry toward the agora, the marketplace and gathering place, while women balance water jugs on their heads. Children run past, laughter echoing against the stone walls. Every corner, every threshold carries reminders of the gods. A small roadside altar to Hermes catches your eye. You bow slightly, murmuring a short prayer, feeling the weight of unseen attention. These little gestures are more than courtesy, they are a shield. Neglect or carelessness could invite misfortune, as you've learned from tales whispered by neighbors. Families destroyed, lives altered, all by divine displeasure. Every stone in the street seems to hum with the presence of unseen forces. Even the air feels charged, as if holding the quiet expectation of watching eyes. You move carefully, aware that survival in this world means respect, humility, and constant attentiveness. Today, like every day, is an offering in itself. The sound of music drifts from the far end of the street. You notice a procession winding toward the temple. White-robed priests lead a decorated bull, garlands twining its horns, each step measured and deliberate. Perhaps today honors Apollo or Athena, though the details matter little compared to the act itself. Your friend falls into step beside you. "Will you attend the sacrifice?" he asks. "Of course," you reply. In this world, absence is risky. Festivals aren't mere entertainment. They are civic duties, woven into the fabric of survival. Each sacrifice is a conversation with the divine, a careful negotiation with powers beyond mortal comprehension. The bull kneels before the altar, water sprinkling over it in ceremonial blessing. You watch silently, part of the collective hope that the gods will accept this offering. Smoke rises, curling toward the bright sky, a visible link between mortals and immortals. The rhythm of chant, sacrifice, and prayer fills the city with both awe and quiet fear. Later, you wander through the agora, the heart of the city. Merchants call out their wares: fresh fish, pottery, imported delicacies. Philosophers gather, students clustered around, voices rising and falling in debate. Heralds announce assembly meetings and upcoming court cases. Even here, divine oversight threads through daily life. A man gestures to the sky, explaining lightning as a natural phenomenon rather than Zeus's anger. Some nod in agreement, others glance nervously, wary of blasphemy. To question the gods is to tread a dangerous line. You remember Anaxagoras, exiled for impiety, and Socrates, condemned to death, their fate's warnings to those who might doubt divine authority. In Athens, the city of learning, wisdom is tempered by reverence. Knowledge may grow, but it must bow to the divine order. Walking among these ancient streets, you feel the delicate balance between curiosity and caution, and the quiet vigilance required to navigate it. By midday, you seek sustenance. At a tavern, bread, olives, and cheese are served, simple yet satisfying. Men at nearby tables discuss news, naval victories attributed to Poseidon's favor. One man mentions the general's skill instead, and a hush falls over the group. Pride before the gods is dangerous. The stories of Ajax's hubris linger in memory, a warning that the sea and the gods do not forgive arrogance. As you eat, the rhythm of daily life slows, providing a gentle pause. Every bite, every sip, is accompanied by gratitude and ritual. Even meals are a form of conversation with the divine. In this world, mindfulness is survival and humility is wisdom. The simplest actions carry meaning beyond the obvious, weaving a quiet connection with forces far larger than yourself. After eating, you visit the gymnasium. Men exercise, nude, wrestling, running, and throwing discus. The Greek word gymnos means naked, a practice reflecting the celebration of the human body and discipline of the mind. Philosophical discussions follow athletic exertion, blending strength, intellect, and virtue. A young man speaks of the Olympic Games, honoring Zeus, victors wearing olive wreaths. Glory lasts a lifetime, but humility is the ultimate prize. Excellence pleases the gods, while pride invites their wrath. Watching the athletes, you understand. Achievement is not enough, reverence must accompany it. The air is thick with exertion and quiet tension, a reminder that even joy and competition are intertwined with divine expectation. The afternoon sun fades as you walk home, stopping at a well to draw water. Simple labor dominates life here, fetching water, tending fields, maintaining the household. Without modern conveniences, survival requires constant effort. Every day, small acts of care and devotion carry the weight of necessity, linking the mundane with the sacred. As you approach your dwelling, the familiar sight of the household shrine reassures you. A small libation, a whispered prayer, and the day's work is sanctified. Even the smallest gestures maintain favor and peace. Here, in the soft glow of late afternoon, the world feels both gentle and precarious, full of rhythm, routine, and divine oversight. Night falls, and neighbors invite you to a symposium, a gathering of conversation, wine, and thought. Reclining on couches, you sip wine mixed with water, offering libations first to the gods, then to the heroes, and finally to Zeus, the savior. The conversation flows, yet even here, stories of hubris and divine punishment temper humor with caution. A merchant's wealth, declared self-earned rather than divinely blessed, is lost in a sudden storm at sea. Hubris, someone murmurs. The gods maintain balance, punishing pride and rewarding humility. Here, wine and reflection merge, creating a soft rhythm that soothes yet reminds, a delicate lull before sleep. Walking home through dim streets, you pass temples where eternal flames flicker, their warm glow guiding travelers. Nighttime is profound, shadowed, and silent. Without modern lights, darkness is a companion, punctuated only by stars and occasional lamps. The city sleeps, but the gods never do. Returning to your dwelling, you light lamps and prepare a simple meal. The first portion, always, is for the gods. Daily devotion sustains divine favor. Neglect, even once, could bring disaster. You feel the comforting weight of ritual, the gentle tension between human action and divine oversight. Night has a rhythm, and you move carefully within it, preparing for rest. Before settling onto your sleeping pallet, you visit the household shrine one final time. The flickering lamp casts shadows across the small figurines, painted eyes seeming to follow your movements. You murmur thanks for protection, for sustenance, for life itself. As you lie down, the gentle sounds of the city fade. The Mediterranean night hums softly, and the stars wheel overhead, each constellation telling stories of gods, heroes, and human folly. Sleep approaches slowly, carrying dreams shaped by divine influence. Tonight, you rest aware of your small place in a vast, sacred world, comforted and cautious, ready to awaken again under watchful eyes. The gentle light of dawn filters through your small window. Your eyes adjust slowly, noticing a small brown spider weaving its web in the corner of the ceiling. You remember the story of Arachne, who dared to challenge Athena. Her skill was flawless, yet her pride brought ruin, and she was transformed into a spider, condemned to weave for eternity. Pride before the gods is perilous, you whisper to yourself. You rise, performing your morning devotions at the household shrine. Every gesture is careful, deliberate, a shield against unseen misfortune. Water from a clay basin cools your face, refreshing and grounding. The rhythm of life here is gentle but exacting, each moment a quiet acknowledgement of forces far greater than yourself. You select a simple chiton from your modest wardrobe. 2 rectangles of lightweight wool or linen, pinned at the shoulders and belted at the waist. Women's chitons are longer, sweeping the ankles, while yours falls just to the knees. The simplicity is deceptive. In this world, even clothing carries ritual significance. Each morning, the act of dressing is quiet preparation, a layering of modesty, discipline, and humility. You glance once more at the shrine, noting the careful placement of small offerings from yesterday. Your movements are deliberate, a part of a larger rhythm connecting the mundane and the divine. Instead of heading to the bustling agora, you journey toward a sacred spring, said to hold healing powers. Olive groves surround the worn path, and the soft rustle of leaves accompanies your steps. Here, the landscape is alive with myth. Each mountain, river, and grove holds stories of gods and heroes. At the spring, the water bubbles up through moss-covered stones. A small stone altar bears offerings, ribbons, clay figurines, and locks of hair. You kneel, filling your clay vessel, whispering thanks to the nymphs who dwell here. Their blessing is gentle yet real, a reminder that the divine permeates not just the city, but every aspect of the natural world. An elderly woman watches quietly from a stone bench. She smiles, recognizing a visitor seeking the nymph's blessing. "I was healed here as a girl," she says softly. "9 days of offerings and bathing in this water restored my sight." Her story carries the weight of lived experience, the quiet certainty of divine care. You nod, pouring a small libation back into the spring. Even in these simple acts, you sense connection, respect, and reverence. Each movement is an acknowledgement that the world is alive with unseen eyes, and that harmony with these forces ensures both health and safety. The path back is dappled with sunlight. Farmers tend their terraced fields, sweating in the Mediterranean heat. Agriculture here demands constant attention, yet even this labor is sacred. Crops, like human life, require respect for the gods. A farmer calls a greeting, noting the blessing of Dido, goddess of the harvest. You respond with care, wishing his crops well. Small gestures maintain favor, reinforcing the intricate network of divine and mortal relations. The city walls loom ahead, and the rhythm of urban life resumes with soft urgency, blending labor, worship, and community. Women prepare for the Thesmophoria, a festival dedicated to Dido. They will leave their homes for 3 days, performing secret rituals that ensure fertility of both crops and women. Men remain behind, tending fields and households. You watch respectfully as they gather, their faces serene, their movements careful. The festival is women-only, a rare sphere of authority in a society dominated by men. Every gesture carries tradition, myth, and the quiet weight of divine expectation. Observing them, you sense the balance between devotion and daily labor, a dance older than memory itself. On the streets, a small procession moves toward the Acropolis. A young girl, chosen as an Aerophoros for Athena, walks in the center, her hair adorned with blossoms. Selected to serve for a year, she will weave the sacred peplo robe and participate in nighttime rituals. You step aside, lowering your gaze. Even observing is a form of reverence. The Aerophoros carries the honor of her family and the favor of the city's patron goddess. Religion here is not abstract. It structures life, roles, and obligations, shaping every interaction in both subtle and profound ways. You climb the steep path toward the Acropolis. Citizens, officials, and visitors share the way, each moving with purpose. At the summit, the Parthenon gleams in the sunlight. Its massive marble columns, painted in vibrant colors, convey awe and permanence. Inside, the towering statue of Athena, made of gold and ivory, seems to watch with serene power. You feel the weight of history, artistry, and devotion converging in this sacred place. Every step, every gesture, carries meaning in a city where the divine is woven into stone, ritual, and human ambition. Near the entrance, a group of men debates the omens for an upcoming military expedition. Darkened entrails and the refusal of sacred chickens have delayed plans. The older priest speaks with quiet authority, cautioning against haste. The younger commander reluctantly concedes. You recall Agamemnon and the sacrifice of his daughter, a tale of divine precedence over human ambition. In Athens, even the most powerful defer to omens. Every action must be measured, every plan weighed against divine will. Survival requires patience, humility, and an attentive mind. Before leaving the Acropolis, you pause at the small altar of Athena Nike, goddess of victory. A whispered prayer, a careful offering of wine, and your day's devotion is complete. Others around you pray for safe returns, athletic success, and thanks for completed work. The descent is quiet, each step an echo of reflection. In the theater of Dionysius, preparations continue for performances that honor the god of wine and ecstasy. Even art, drama, and entertainment exist as rituals, weaving human experience with divine presence. You walk home slowly, feeling the subtle rhythm of devotion and community shaping every part of life. The afternoon sun is soft as you arrive at the public fountain house. Women gather, their large clay hydria jars balanced carefully, exchanging news and stories as they fill them with water. The fountain is decorated with small sculptures of water nymphs, whose watchful eyes remind everyone that even mundane tasks carry sacred significance. You pause, watching a child laugh as he chases the dripping water. Conversation, labor, and reverence intertwine here. Even filling a jar is a form of participation in the divine rhythm. You quietly offer a thought of thanks to the nymphs, feeling the water's coolness slip through your fingers, a gentle reminder of life's interconnection with the unseen. Two women converse in hushed tones nearby. One whispers about a man who mocked the Eleusinian mysteries, sacred rituals promising a blessed afterlife. The other shudders, glancing around nervously. Religious offenses are treated with utmost seriousness. Impiety can lead to exile or worse. You walk carefully, absorbing the gravity of their words. In Athens, belief is both private and public, shaping law, society, and personal safety. Observing the fountain house, you understand that respect for the divine is woven into every corner of life, subtle yet omnipresent. Even gossip carries a lesson about vigilance and humility. As dusk approaches, you visit a small sanctuary dedicated to Asclepius, god of healing. The air is calm, scented with burning incense and the soft tang of herbs. People prepare simple palettes, hoping for dreams that may bring healing or guidance. Priests perform quiet purification rituals, their movements slow and deliberate. On the walls, small votive offerings depict healed body parts, hands, feet, eyes. A physician tends to a wounded man, blending practical care with prayer. Here, medicine and divine intervention coexist. The sanctuary offers comfort and hope, a space where faith and action meet in a delicate balance, a reminder that healing can be both seen and unseen. A priest gestures toward a small, non-venomous snake gliding along the sanctuary wall. Sacred to Asclepius, the snake embodies renewal, shedding its old skin and emerging restored. You watch, mesmerized by the slow, deliberate movement. The symbolism is gentle but profound. Life, healing, and divine presence all move in cycles, unseen yet unmistakable. As you leave the sanctuary, the fading light casts long shadows, and you feel the quiet weight of reverence for forces that operate beyond mortal sight. The day's events settle in your mind, slow and soft like the approaching night. The streets grow quieter as you walk home. Without modern lighting, shadows deepen, and each flicker of a torch seems sacred. Travelers move in groups for safety, their lamps casting warm circles of light. You feel the rhythm of the city, the ebb of activity, and the slow pulse of nighttime. Passing modest houses, you hear the soft singing of a mother teaching her daughter a hymn to Artemis. Religious education begins in the home, small gestures shaping young minds to honor the divine. Observing these quiet moments, you realize that devotion permeates even the simplest acts of daily life. You reach your dwelling and light small oil lamps. Dinner is simple, yet as always, the first portion is offered to the gods. Wine, bread, and olives become part of a daily ritual connecting household, community, and divine oversight. As you eat, the gentle flicker of the lamps casts shadows that seem alive, reminding you that the God's presence is constant. Every day ends with this small act of devotion, reinforcing safety, balance, and gratitude. Here, the mundane and sacred meet quietly, a rhythm that brings both comfort and caution. After the meal, you sit by lamplight, spinning wool or mending garments. Conversation flows softly if neighbors are near, or the evening passes in quiet introspection. Without mechanical distractions, life slows naturally. Each gesture, each movement holds meaning. You pause, thinking of the stories of hubris and divine punishment you have heard. They are more than tales, they are lessons embedded in everyday existence. Humility and vigilance are constant companions. Even small moments of thoughtfulness contribute to survival and harmony in this world. Before sleep, you make one final visit to the household shrine. The painted figurines of the gods seem almost alive, their eyes following each movement. You whisper thanks, asking for protection and prosperity for the night. In ancient Greece, nightly rituals provide reassurance. Darkness is profound, but divine presence is constant. You feel a quiet peace settle over the home. Every small act of devotion, repeated day after day, weaves a protective rhythm that eases the mind, preparing it for sleep. Lying on your sleeping pallet, the Mediterranean night wraps around you. Stars wheel overhead, each constellation telling a divine story. Perseus, Andromeda, Orion. The sky is alive with myth. As sleep begins, you reflect on the day's encounters, the festivals, the sacred sites, the lessons in humility and devotion. Dreams are a bridge between the mortal and divine, sent by Morpheus, god of dreams. Perhaps tonight, a vision will carry guidance or insight, gentle and slow, helping you navigate the world under the watchful eyes of the gods. Before dawn, distant drums and flutes awaken the city. Groggy you rise, drawn to the window. Torchlight flickers as a procession winds its way through the streets. The rhythm is hypnotic, slow, and deliberate. The city is alive even before sunrise, devotion and ritual intertwining with everyday life. You feel part of something larger, a quiet observer in a world where divine presence shapes every motion, every decision. The night fades gently into day, carrying you forward, still aware, still cautious, and still part of the sacred rhythm. The first light of day filters through your window. You rise slowly, stretching and taking a deep breath. Your hands move instinctively to the household shrine. A small libation of wine or water is poured, and a whispered prayer rises. The gods are ever present, observing even the quietest beginnings of the day. Outside, the city is just beginning to stir. The scent of baking bread drifts faintly on the breeze, mingling with the earthy aroma of the stone streets. Small movements, the rattle of water jars, the soft shuffle of tunics, signal the world awakening. Even these ordinary moments are infused with divine significance. Stepping into the street, children dart between adults, chasing one another with simple wooden toys. Laughter echoes through the narrow lanes, blending with the calls of merchants opening their stalls. Even in play, there is awareness of the gods, as small altars to the streets. You pause, acknowledging each with a slight bow. Stories of hubris and divine punishment linger in your mind, gently shaping your movements. Each action, no matter how trivial, is a thread in the delicate fabric of human-divine interaction. The city hums with quiet reverence, its rhythm soft yet deliberate. Arriving at the agora, the marketplace is alive with activity. Fish, pottery, and imported luxuries line the stalls, vendors calling out with practiced ease. You navigate slowly, mindful of the small roadside shrines and herms marking intersections. At one stall, You pause to leave a tiny offering for Hermes, protector of travelers and commerce. Even the marketplace, bustling with mundane commerce, is a sacred space. Each gesture of devotion maintains favor, weaving caution and mindfulness into the rhythm of daily life. A festival approaches, and the city hums with anticipation. Priests carry garlands and prepare the altar, while citizens polish offerings. You walk past, observing the care with which each ritual is performed. Even without participating, you feel the pulse of reverence. The gods are everywhere watching. The rhythm of preparation is slow and deliberate, each movement a prayer in itself. As the sun climbs higher, the city moves in gentle synchrony, a dance between human endeavor and divine expectation. At the temple, the bull is led to the altar. Its head is sprinkled with lustral water, a sign of willingness. The priest raises the knife in a practiced motion, and blood collects in a ceremonial bowl. Portions are offered to the gods, while the remainder will feed the community. You stand silently, absorbing the significance. Even those not directly participating are bound by the ritual's gravity. The smoke rising to the sky is a tangible connection between mortals and immortals, a reminder that life, labor, and devotion are intertwined in quiet, measured ways. Nearby, a group of philosophers engages in animated discussion. Some speak of natural causes, lightning and thunder explained without invoking Zeus. Others listen warily, understanding the danger of impiety. You move closer, watching, aware that in Athens, wisdom must tread carefully. Even the pursuit of knowledge is measured against divine expectation. The air is thick with thought, reverence, and cautious curiosity. Learning here is not separate from worship, but entwined with the slow rhythm of piety. Sitting beneath a shaded colonnade, you take a moment to reflect. The city's activity hums gently around you. Merchants call out, children laugh, priests whisper prayers. Each gesture is both ordinary and sacred, blending seamlessly. You think of stories like Ajax's hubris and Arachne's pride. Humility and vigilance remain constant companions, guiding your movements and thoughts. In this world, reflection is a ritual, a quiet acknowledgement that each moment is observed and measured by forces beyond mortal understanding. You approach a public fountain to draw water. Women gather, their voices soft, exchanging news, gossip, and encouragement. Clay jars fill slowly, deliberately, the sound of splashing water harmonizing with murmured prayers to nymphs. You pour a small offering into the fountain, a gesture of gratitude. Even such simple labor becomes sacred when performed with mindfulness. Every action, repeated day by day, reinforces the delicate bond between mortal life and divine favor. The sun climbs high, warming the stone streets and terraced fields. Farmers tend their crops with steady care, mindful of the blessings of Dido and Persephone. The labor is slow, repetitive, and exhausting, yet it is infused with purpose. You pass, greeting them with careful words of reverence. Even casual acknowledgement of the gods' influence is significant. Life moves at a measured pace, a blend of labor, ritual, and mindfulness, teaching patience and humility to all who walk the city streets. As afternoon fades, the city prepares for evening rituals and meals. Lamps are cleaned, water drawn, altars refreshed. The rhythm of daily life slows, becoming softer and quieter. You pause at the household shrine, offering thanks for the day's safety. The flicker of the lamp casts gentle shadows, reminding you of the ever-present divine gaze. Night approaches slowly, carrying with it the promise of rest, reflection, and dreams guided by forces that shape every aspect of mortal life. As dusk settles, you light the small oil lamps in your home. The soft glow dances across the walls, illuminating the household shrine. You pour a small libation and murmur a prayer, asking for protection through the night. Evening in ancient Greece is quiet, deliberate. Without modern distractions, each gesture becomes ritual, each movement observed by unseen eyes. The flickering light reminds you of the gods' omnipresence, gentle yet commanding. The world slows, allowing contemplation and calm, as if the night itself is a sacred space for reflection. Sitting on the floor, you take up wool to spin into thread. Your hands move slowly, twisting fibers into smooth strands. The rhythmic motion is soothing, meditative. Every loop of thread feels purposeful, connecting you to generations of women who have performed the same task in devotion to household and gods. Soft candlelight illuminates your work, casting gentle shadows on the walls. Each movement is mindful, a quiet act of patience and reverence. The simplicity of labor blends seamlessly with the weight of devotion, creating a gentle rhythm that eases both body and mind. Outside, faint voices carry through the streets. A mother teaches her daughter a hymn to Artemis for an upcoming festival. The girl repeats the words slowly, carefully, learning not just the melody, but the importance of reverence and tradition. Religious education begins in the home. You watch for a moment, recognizing the significance of these quiet lessons. Small acts, repeated over years, ensure that devotion continues through generations. The rhythm is subtle, almost imperceptible, yet it forms the foundation of the city's spiritual life. Sitting by the window, you gaze at the stars. Constellations tell the stories of Perseus, Orion, and Andromeda, connecting the heavens with myth, memory, and morality. Even as the city sleeps, the sky reminds you of the gods' eternal presence. You reflect on the day's events, the market, the fountain, the rituals, and feel a gentle awareness settle in. Life in this world is a continuous negotiation with divine forces, balancing humility, devotion, and observation. Each action carries weight, each thought a subtle offering. As you lay on your pallet, your breathing slows. The Mediterranean night wraps around you like a soft blanket. Morpheus, god of dreams, begins to weave visions through your mind, gentle and slow. Perhaps a lesson, perhaps a prophecy, perhaps a comforting story. Dreams are the god's messages, subtle and deliberate, guiding your thoughts while you rest. The night is quiet, sacred, and alive with divine presence, lulling you into deeper sleep while teaching humility and attentiveness. Before dawn, faint sounds echo through the city. Drums, flutes, and soft chants mark a procession beginning its slow journey through the streets. Groggy, you rise and watch from your window, torchlight flickering along the path. The rhythm is hypnotic, gentle yet deliberate. Even before sunrise, the city is alive with devotion. The procession reminds you that time itself is measured by ritual and reverence, and that life flows in quiet harmony with the divine. The sun rises, filtering soft light through your small window. You rise slowly, performing the morning libation with careful precision. Water or wine touches the altar, prayers whispered for protection and guidance. Outside, the streets awaken. Children play, merchants prepare their stalls, and neighbors exchange greetings. The rhythm of life continues, each day a careful repetition of devotion, labor, and mindfulness. Survival in this world is tied not to force, but to reverence and attentiveness. Terraced fields stretch across the hillsides. Farmers tend crops with steady hands, mindful of Dido, goddess of harvest, and her daughter Pesphanonie. Every motion is measured, deliberate, a silent prayer for prosperity. You watch quietly, acknowledging the god's influence in labor and growth. Even simple work, repeated patiently, sustains life and ensures divine favor. The rhythm of daily toil is slow, almost hypnotic, lulling your mind into a calm acceptance of the natural and sacred order. Preparations for a minor festival are underway. Priests polish altars, arrange garlands, and set out offerings. Citizens move through the streets slowly, aware that every gesture carries significance. Even without participating directly, you feel the weight of devotion. The city pulses gently with ritual and preparation, a steady, measured heartbeat. Life is a series of careful acts, each one intertwining human intention with divine expectation, producing a rhythm soft enough to soothe yet compelling enough to command attention. As the sun sets, the city slows. Lamps are lit, the smell of cooking drifts through stone streets, and quiet chatter accompanies the evening. You visit the household shrine one final time, whispering thanks for protection and guidance. The flickering lamp casts gentle shadows on the walls. Night enfolds the city in a soft, protective embrace. Sleep approaches gradually, carrying with it reflections of the day, lessons in humility, and awareness of the divine presence that shapes every action, every thought, and every breath. The city grows still under the soft glow of oil lamps. You sit quietly by the household shrine, the flickering light reflecting off small figurines. Your hands rest in your lap as you offer a silent prayer of thanks for the day's safety. Even as sleep approaches, you feel the gods' watchful presence. Nighttime is not merely a pause but a continuation of devotion. Each breath is measured, each thought mindful. The gentle rhythm of the city at rest mirrors the calm within, creating a slow, soothing cadence that prepares mind and body for sleep. Outside, distant dogs bark softly, and the rustle of leaves carries on a faint breeze. The faint clatter of a late traveler's jar on the stone streets reminds you that life continues quietly even in darkness. You close your eyes, listening to these subtle sounds. Each noise seems alive with meaning, a reminder that the divine watches and the city breathes in slow harmony. The gentle night envelopes you like a soft cloak, lulling your body toward deeper rest. In the dim glow of your lamp, you prepare clay vessels for tomorrow's water gathering. The motion is slow and deliberate, a repetition of small domestic rituals that sustain daily life. You pause to leave a tiny libation beside each vessel, a subtle acknowledgement of the nymphs who bless the springs. Even simple, repetitive tasks carry spiritual significance here, and performing them mindfully brings a quiet, grounding rhythm that eases thought and spirit alike. You step outside for a moment, letting the cool night air brush your face. The stars wheel overhead in silent patterns. Constellations tell divine stories. Perseus, Andromeda, Orion. Each points to myth, morality, and the eternal presence of gods. The sky feels vast, yet intimate. You breathe slowly, contemplating the delicate balance of mortal effort and divine will. The gentle sparkle of distant fires above the Acropolis mirrors the inner calm that grows with this quiet reflection. From the neighboring house, you hear the soft breathing of children settling onto their pallets. The slow cadence of their sleep is mirrored in the city's rhythm. Even their dreams, shaped by parents' songs and lessons, carry echoes of gods and heroes. The continuity of generations creates a comforting presence. Each child learning hymns, each story whispered at bedtime, becomes part of the unseen structure connecting mortals and immortals. The night stretches longer, softening and slowing all movement. Returning inside, you perform quiet chores, folding garments, repairing simple tools. The oil lamp flickers gently, casting elongated shadows across the stone floor. Each small act of care maintains both order and honor in the home. These repetitive, slow movements create a rhythm that mirrors the city and divine cycles. Each stitch, each fold, is a gesture of mindfulness and devotion, a way of connecting daily labor with the larger patterns of life shaped by gods and mortals alike. Before settling onto your pallet, you visit the household shrine one final time. A libation of wine touches the small altar, and you whisper a prayer for protection through the night. The figurines seem almost alive in the lamplight. You feel the quiet weight of their gaze, gentle but unmistakable. Each day's devotion ensures continuity, a subtle insurance against misfortune, and a reminder that every action, no matter how small, carries significance in this delicate, divine human world. You lay down on your sleeping pallet, the Mediterranean night wrapping gently around your body. The scent of olive oil and herbs lingers softly in the air. Your muscles relax, and your mind slows, guided by the gentle rhythm of the day's rituals and observations. Every movement and gesture of today, no matter how trivial, has contributed to your protection and harmony. The conscious awareness of divine presence and careful attention to routine now eases into unconscious rest. As your eyelids grow heavy, visions begin to form. Perhaps a dream from Morpheus, the god of sleep, who carries messages from the divine. Figures of heroes, animals sacred to deities, and mythic landscapes drift gently in your mind. The dreams move slowly, almost in rhythm with your breathing. They are comforting, guiding, teaching humility and mindfulness. Even in sleep, the world remains sacred and alive, every vision a subtle lesson woven into your subconscious. Before the sun rises fully, The first light casts a pale glow over the stone streets. Torches flicker in distant homes, and a procession begins its measured march through the quiet avenues. Drums and flutes mark the rhythm of devotion. You rise slowly, aware that the city and its inhabitants are waking under the careful watch of the gods. Each step forward carries the promise of another day of observation, ritual, and mindful living, a gentle continuation of the cycle that binds mortals and immortals in a slow, sacred dance. The sun rises slowly, casting a golden glow over the narrow streets. The first merchants begin to open their stalls, their calls muted in the quiet dawn. Children stretch and yawn, gathering near small altars to offer morning prayers. You walk carefully, mindful of every shrine, every hymn, every small sign of divine presence. The city awakens in gentle rhythm, each action a quiet acknowledgement of unseen forces. Even the soft breeze through olive branches carries whispers of the gods' watchfulness, reminding you that the day's pace is guided by reverence. At the public fountain, women fill clay jars with water, exchanging greetings and news. You pause, pouring a small libation into the flowing water for the nymphs who bless the springs. The gentle trickle of water, the soft clatter of jars, and the murmur of voices create a soothing symphony. Even ordinary tasks are sacred, and performing them with awareness maintains favor and harmony. The world feels slow, deliberate, and full of quiet significance. Terraced fields climb the hillsides, farmers moving steadily among olive trees and grain. Their motions are deliberate, a blend of labor and devotion to Dido and her daughter Pesfanini. You walk past slowly, nodding in greeting and offering silent respect. The rhythm of toil, the repetition of small acts, and the care in each movement create a gentle flow. Life in these moments is measured and mindful, each task both necessary and sacred. Streets hum softly with preparations for a minor festival. Priests arrange garlands, polish altars, and set out offerings. Citizens move in quiet coordination, aware that every gesture carries weight. You pause to watch, feeling the slow pulse of ritual shape the city's rhythm. Even the simplest movements are infused with meaning, reinforcing the delicate balance between human effort and divine favor. The day continues gently, each moment a thread in the sacred tapestry of life. Sitting in the shade, you watch the city move at its measured pace. Merchants call softly, children play, and citizens tend small tasks. Every act is intertwined with devotion, conscious or subtle. You reflect on stories of hubris, on Arachne and Ajax, on the lessons whispered through generations. Humility, mindfulness, and respect for the gods' influence shape every thought and action. The afternoon heat is soft, soothing, and slow, encouraging contemplation. You visit the fountain to refill clay jars. The water is cool and clear, flowing steadily from moss-covered stones. Women chat quietly, sharing news, advice, and prayers. You leave a small offering, honoring the nymph's protection. Even repetitive tasks become sacred when performed slowly and mindfully. Each gesture reinforces your connection to the divine, and the gentle rhythm of labor and devotion lulls the mind toward calm awareness. As the sun lowers, the city quiets. Lamps are lit, altars refreshed, and streets become softer under fading light. You pause at the household shrine, offering thanks for safety and protection. The flickering lamp casts gentle shadows that seem almost alive. Night approaches slowly, carrying the promise of rest, reflection, and dreams. Even in the dim light, the presence of the gods feels palpable, a constant, gentle reminder of vigilance and gratitude. Sitting by lamplight, you engage in small domestic tasks, folding garments, mending tools, or spinning wool. Each motion is deliberate, slow, and meditative. The repetition soothes both body and mind. The quiet night allows reflection on the day's events, the market, the fountain, the temples. Life is a measured rhythm, weaving together labor, devotion, and awareness of divine presence, creating calm and peace before sleep. Lying on your pallet, you feel the Mediterranean night embrace you. The gentle cadence of previous rituals prepares your mind for sleep. Morpheus, god of dreams, begins to weave visions. Scenes of heroes, sacred animals, and mythic landscapes drift slowly through your mind. The dreams are soft, instructive, and comforting, guiding reflection and humility. Even in unconsciousness, the divine shapes the flow of thought and awareness. Before sunrise, faint torchlight flickers in distant homes. A slow procession winds through the quiet streets, drums and flutes marking the measured rhythm of devotion. You rise slowly, aware that the city, its people, and the gods are intertwined in a cycle of labor, ritual, and mindfulness. Each day repeats gently, each moment a continuation of the sacred dance. The world is slow, deliberate, and alive with presence, guiding every action, every thought, and every breath. You linger a moment after placing the honey cake, observing travelers pausing to murmur brief prayers. Merchants clutch their coin pouches, young couples bow heads before setting out, and children shyly mimic their parents' gestures. The square pillar of the herm, with its sharply carved features and prominent symbolism, seems almost alive, standing vigilant over the busy street. The scents of bread, honey, and dust mix in the warm morning air, and the faint rustle of leaves in a nearby plane tree adds a subtle rhythm to the prayers. Returning to the agora, you note the stalls have shifted slightly since earlier. New vegetables arrive, fish glisten under the morning sun, and honey jars glint from wicker baskets. You stop to admire the careful arrangement, noticing the subtle skill of display meant to appeal to both eye and palate. Conversations between sellers and buyers drift lazily, punctuated by soft laughter or gentle bartering. Each transaction feels a small act of devotion, a careful negotiation that honors both honesty and social harmony. A storyteller kneels on the ground beneath a fig tree, tracing fingers over small figurines as he recounts tales of Heracles' labors. The figures seem to move as he speaks, limbs outstretched in the imagination of the listeners. Children gather close, wide-eyed, while adults nod, appreciating both the narrative and the subtle moral lessons hidden within. The story concludes with Heracles' triumph over the Nemean lion, and the crowd sighs collectively, absorbed in the resonance of courage, cleverness, and the gods' guidance. You wander into a small workshop, the scent of wet clay strong and comforting. The potter, kneading the clay with deliberate, rhythmic motions, shapes bowls and amphorae while humming quietly. The workbench is lined with half-finished vessels, tools worn smooth from repeated use. You pause to watch, mesmerized by the transformation of a shapeless lump into a container of precise beauty. Each piece embodies patience, skill, and care, a tangible reflection of human excellence and divine inspiration. Passing a narrow street, you notice a small, almost hidden shrine to Hestia, goddess of the hearth. The altar, no taller than a child, is adorned with a few fresh flowers and a smudge of ash from the morning fire. A single lamp flickers in the corner. You pause, offering a silent nod. Hestia's presence is subtle, gentle, but constant, a reminder that even the smallest corners of life are sacred. The act of recognition, quiet and almost invisible, brings a moment of inner calm. Near the Nix Hill, citizens arrange wooden benches for an upcoming assembly. The labor is orderly, deliberate, and rhythmic. Each action is carefully coordinated, a microcosm of civic harmony. Even the tools themselves, polished and worn, testify to centuries of use in maintaining public life. Watching, you feel the deep intertwining of human effort and divine oversight, as though the gods themselves encourage diligence and balance in matters of civic importance. A group of children plays near a fountain, tossing small stones and laughing quietly. Their games echo stories of heroes, minor gods, and mythic creatures, repeated from older generations. You pause, observing the unhurried joy, the careful mimicry of adult behaviors, the small rituals embedded in play. Even these tiny acts of recreation hold meaning, preparation for civic roles, moral lessons, and early understanding of divine influence in daily life. The sun climbs high, casting long shadows. You find refuge under an olive tree, feeling the coolness of the dappled shade. The breeze carries scents of grass, clay, and distant salt from the sea. Nearby, citizens rest, wash, or quietly talk, each movement deliberate and slow. The afternoon heat enforces a gentle lethargy, encouraging reflection. Your mind drifts over the morning's events, weaving together prayers, encounters, and small lessons in human and divine interaction. Approaching a small temple of Apollo, you hear the soft clang of bronze instruments used in ritual preparation. Priests sweep the stone floors, arranging libations and ensuring the sacred fire burns steadily. The quiet, purposeful work impresses upon you the precision with which mortals honor their gods. Inside, delicate sunlight streams through open doorways, illuminating offerings of small statues, fresh garlands, and jars of wine. The air hums with a subtle vibration, as if each gesture resonates with divine approval. Returning to the marketplace, now quieter as the sun descends, you notice the final exchanges of goods. Merchants tally the day's proceeds, children carry small parcels home, and priests light lamps for evening prayers. The warmth of the day softens into dusk, and shadows stretch across the uneven streets. In this slow fade of activity, a sense of rhythm and order pervades everything. Daily life, devotion, commerce, and observation all intertwine seamlessly, a tapestry of ordinary acts imbued with sacred significance. You return home as dusk deepens, carrying a small jar of olive oil for your household shrine. The flame flickers in the gentle evening breeze, casting shadows that dance across the walls. You pour the oil carefully, whispering the customary words of devotion. Each movement is deliberate, measured, connecting you to generations before. Even in the quiet of your own home, the divine presence feels near, steady, and watching, reminding you that the day's events, triumphs, failures, dreams, are all encompassed in the God's attention. In the courtyard, your neighbor's children gather around an elderly woman who recounts the story of Persephone's descent to Hades. The children listen raptly, their eyes wide as they absorb both the narrative and the moral lessons embedded within. Questions are asked carefully, and she answers with patience. The lesson is not merely myth but a guide to understanding seasonal cycles, human emotion, and divine power. In their fascination, you see how knowledge, morality, and devotion intertwine seamlessly from youth. Nearby, a pair of flute players begins a slow, melodic tune. The sound drifts through the streets, harmonizing with the evening breeze and distant voices. People pause, listening, their pace unconsciously slowing. Music, though secular in appearance, serves as an extension of devotion, a bridge between mortal skill and divine inspiration. Even the simplest notes can evoke memory, prayer, or reflection, making the ordinary moment extraordinary. Passing a workshop again, you notice the potter now shaping vases by lamplight. The clay gleams in the fire's glow, wet and pliable under practiced hands. Each spin of the wheel, each precise adjustment, becomes almost meditative. You linger, appreciating the quiet dedication and the subtle artistry. In this labor, you sense the reflection of cosmic order. Patient attention, repeated practice, and careful shaping yield beauty and utility alike. A warm, yeasty aroma draws you to a baker finishing the day's work. Loaves are pulled from the clay oven, their crusts crackling softly. The baker wipes sweat from his brow, muttering a brief prayer of thanks. Observing this, you notice how devotion permeates even labor seemingly mundane. The gods are honored not only with grand temples but in these daily acts of creation, care, and sustenance. Walking toward the city's edge, you glance at the harbor where boats sway gently in the evening tide. Sailors make final offerings to Poseidon, a small libation poured into the water as thanks for safe passage. Nets are carefully folded, lanterns are lit, and the rhythmic sound of waves against hulls forms a slow meditation. Even as night approaches, the god's presence in human endeavor remains visible and essential. Returning briefly to the agora, you find the square almost deserted. Shadows stretch long across empty stalls. A lone torch flickers, casting light on the stone pavement. You pass quietly, noting the faint residue of incense from earlier offerings. The marketplace, like the city itself, shifts subtly between activity and repose, embodying the constant cycle of human labor, divine attention, and reflective stillness. You wander toward a small temple dedicated to Athena, goddess of wisdom and strategy. The evening air is cool, the temple quiet. Inside, offerings of olive oil and small votive weapons rest on the altar. You observe a young girl bowing carefully before lighting a candle, whispering a prayer for guidance in her studies. Athena's presence feels focused and exacting, reminding you that knowledge, discipline, and virtue are forms of devotion as meaningful as prayer or sacrifice. Stepping outside, you pause as the moon rises, bathing Athens in silvery light. Shadows of buildings and trees stretch across the uneven streets. The sight reminds you of the gods' constant influence over both night and day. Travelers returning home murmur prayers of thanks. Lovers, families, and neighbors move quietly through the streets, each act of reverence, however small, acknowledged by divine attention. The city itself seems to breathe in harmony with the cycles of celestial order. As you near home, you reflect on the day, prayers offered, lessons observed, strangers aided, and the seamless blending of human action with divine influence. Even the smallest tasks, preparing food, watching children play, listening to a story, carry sacred weight. Life in Athens is neither casual nor wholly separate from divinity. Each movement, conversation, and observation becomes a thread in the broader tapestry, connecting mortals to heroes, gods, and the unseen forces that shape existence. The morning air is cool and still, and as you step outside your modest stone home, the city of Athens begins to awaken slowly beneath the soft light of dawn. The streets are quiet, punctuated by the occasional clatter of a cart over uneven cobblestones or the distant bleat of goats led to pasture by farmers. You notice the familiar fragrance of bread baking in small ovens, mingling with the rich scent of olive oil and the earthy aroma of damp stone from last night's rain. Today, however, feels different. The festival of Panathenea draws near, and the city's pulse is already quickening with anticipation. Banners of blue and white flutter along rooftops, and garlands of ivy and flowers are draped along the main thoroughfares. This festival honors Athena, the city's patron goddess, and her presence is expected in every home, every temple, and every act performed during these sacred days. You pause at the corner where a small shrine to Hestia stands, as you have every morning since waking in this strange, ancient world. Kneeling on the cool stone, you pour a small libation of water onto the altar, whispering a prayer for protection and guidance. The carved figurines, worn smooth by generations of hands, seem almost to regard you with faint expectation. Your lips murmur words you do not fully understand, yet their cadence soothes you. The gods, ever watchful, demand neither eloquence nor perfection, only acknowledgement and reverence. Hestia, goddess of the hearth, silently witnesses the ritual. Her gaze is calm and approving, a quiet assurance that your household remains under divine protection. Leaving the shrine, you step into the narrow street. The city begins to stir in earnest now. Women, clothed in long chitons dyed deep blue or soft ochre, balance water jars atop their heads as they walk to the public fountains. Their movements are fluid, graceful, conditioned by years of practice. Men hurry toward the agora, bundles of goods tucked beneath their arms, sandals slapping lightly against the stones. Children chase one another, their laughter echoing between the walls, while the occasional dog barks, sniffing curiously at the passers-by. Everywhere you look, there are reminders of the divine. Small altars stand tucked into corners, offering a quiet but persistent presence. At each, you pause briefly, bowing your head, murmuring a simple acknowledgement. The gods are everywhere, from the bustling center of the city to the quietest back alley, and your survival depends on honoring them with both small gestures and great attention. As you approach the agora, you notice a group gathered around a young man who carries a lyre. He plucks its strings gently, singing of the deeds of Heracles. The crowd listens with rapt attention. Even among the busy marketplace stalls, where merchants call out the day's wares, fresh fish, fragrant herbs, earthenware vessels, and rare imported textiles, there is a pause when the lyre sings, a momentary hush that draws the city together. The story he tells is familiar: Heracles' journey through 12 labors, his triumphs and his sufferings, each framed as a lesson in courage, endurance, and respect for the gods. You listen, feeling the weight of these stories settle around you. They are not mere entertainment. They are moral instruction, a map for living a life mindful of the divine and of human limitation. Moving past the performers, your path leads to a small bakery. Inside, the warmth from the ovens embraces you. The baker, a stout man with flower-streaked hands, nods as you approach. You select a loaf of barley bread, noting the evenness of the crust and the slight tang of fermented dough. Each bite, though simple, is a reminder of the labor required to sustain life. Bread is more than nourishment here. It is a product of both human toil and divine blessing. The grain, harvested with care, the millstones turned by steady hands, and the oven, fueled by hearth fire and prayers to Hestia, all converge in this simple sustenance. You leave the bakery with your bread tucked carefully under your arm, stepping back into the open air and feeling the sun climbing higher in the sky. The sound of distant drums catches your attention. A procession winds its way through the streets, carrying garlands, statues, and offerings. Musicians play flutes and tambourines, their melodies both haunting and celebratory. You recognize the festival as one honoring Dionysus, the god of wine, ecstasy, and the untamed aspects of human nature. Today, the Maeoniads, women dedicated to Dionysian worship, will leave the city for their secret rites in the surrounding hills. Their steps are accompanied by music and chanting, a rhythm that seems almost hypnotic, drawing participants into a trance even before reaching the wilderness. You watch respectfully, knowing the dangers of intrusion. The stories of Penthus, who spied on the rituals only to meet a violent death, are not forgotten. You decide instead to continue your errands, moving toward the temple of Athena Nike on the Acropolis. The path winds upward, the ascent steady but manageable. Along the way, you pass groups of young boys and men practicing with javelins and discus in a small training field. Their movements are precise, measured, and controlled. Athletic excellence, the Greeks believe, honors the gods as much as it develops the body. You pause to observe a young man perfecting his discus throw, noting the combination of strength, skill, and discipline in each effort. Nearby, older men offer guidance, reminding the youth of the importance of both physical and moral virtue. Arriving at the temple, you take a moment to admire the painted marble, the vivid reds, blues, and golds gleaming even under the morning sun. The columns soar above you, and you are struck by the sense of permanence, of human effort reaching toward the divine. Pilgrims and citizens alike perform small rituals at the altar, leaving offerings and murmuring prayers. You contribute your own, a small portion of bread and a sip of water, knowing that each act of devotion fortifies the city as much as it safeguards your household. Nearby, a woman kneels before the statue of Athena, her lips moving in a silent plea for her son's safe return from a naval expedition. You cannot help but feel the weight of the community's hopes, bound together by ritual, myth, and a shared understanding of divine influence. After leaving the Acropolis, you descend to the Theater of Dionysus. Workers sweep the orchestra, repair the skein, and prepare the stone seats for upcoming performances. Tragedy and comedy are not mere entertainment, they are civic rituals, expressions of both collective anxiety and aspiration. As you watch, you see young apprentices practicing lines, older actors correcting posture and delivery. The plays, often centered on human interaction with the divine, hubris, and the consequences of moral failings, serve as public reflection on the fragile balance between mortals and gods. You are reminded of the story of Oedipus, who despite noble intent, falls victim to fate, illustrating the limits of human control and the inexorable power of divine will. The afternoon sun climbs high, and you seek refreshment at a nearby fountain house. Women gather to collect water, their jars heavy but handled with ease and rhythm learned over years of practice. Conversations weave around you, discussions of family, news of military campaigns, gossip about religious observances. You overhear a mention of Diagoras of Melos, a man condemned for impiety whose disbelief in the gods brought him to ruin. His fate serves as a stark reminder of the delicate boundary between philosophical inquiry and the dangerous hubris of denying divine authority. With your water gathered and your heart quieted by reflection, you make your way to the outskirts of the city. A small shrine to the hero Theseus sits on a grassy rise. Miniature weapons and votive plaques decorate the altar, evidence of devotion and reverence. You kneel before the shrine, offering your own humble gift of a small honey cake. You whisper a prayer for courage, reflecting on the young soldiers who have come here for the blessing before military service. Theseus, embodying virtue and bravery, inspires both action and contemplation. Arete, the pursuit of excellence, resonates in every step you take. As the day wanes, shadows lengthening across the city, you return home. Oil lamps flicker within each dwelling, and the warmth of hearth fire invites reflection and conversation. You set aside portions of your evening meal for the gods, pour libations, and bow your head in gratitude. Even as exhaustion creeps over you, there is comfort in routine, in the awareness that divine forces both guard and observe. The day's rhythms, from dawn prayers to evening offerings, tie you inexorably to the city, to its traditions, and to the gods who, capricious yet ever-present, guide your existence. Night falls fully, and the streets quiet. Stars glitter above, forming patterns that to your ancestors were stories of gods, heroes, and the eternal cosmos. As sleep draws near, your final thoughts drift to the rituals, the stories, and the lessons of the day. Morpheus may visit with dreams shaped by divine hands, offering guidance or reflection. In this world, even sleep carries weight, a reminder that mortals live always under the watchful gaze of the divine. You close your eyes, the cool night air on your face, the faint scent of olive groves and hearth fire lulling you into rest, a fragile peace within a city steeped in gods and stories, waiting for the dawn of another day. Dawn breaks slowly, spilling pale light over the city walls. You awake to the scent of olive oil and dew on stone, the faint call of a rooster somewhere in the distance. Today is the day of the Paeanopsia, a minor festival in honor of Apollo, marking the ripening of the crops and the transition from summer toward the shorter days of autumn. Even minor observances hold significance in Athens, for the gods, in their many forms, watch all aspects of human life. You pause at the edge of your bed, letting the quiet city seep into your awareness. The streets are not yet alive with merchants or the clatter of wheels, but the day carries a gentle promise. First, the morning ritual. You kneel before the household shrine, pouring water onto the altar and sprinkling a small handful of barley in Hestia's flame-warmed vessel. Whispered words of thanks leave your lips, honoring the hearth and the family that it sustains. Hestia, the guardian of home and domestic order, requires no grand gestures, only attentiveness and sincerity. You linger a moment, letting your mind settle into the rhythm of devotion, the small crackle of fire and the faint scent of smoke forming a quiet comfort. The streets begin to stir as you step outside. Women carry baskets of figs and olives toward the agora, their sandals clicking softly against the stone. Men stride briskly, bundles of goods balanced on their shoulders, already absorbed in thought of commerce, civic duty, or family. Children, not yet schooled, chase one another around corners, their laughter a bright accompaniment to the soft morning breeze. At intervals, small shrines catch your eye. Carved stones, painted statues, or simple piles of offerings marking a sacred presence. Each represents a moment of acknowledgement, a reminder that Athens exists not solely through human effort, but through divine observation and favor. Your first destination is the Temple of Apollo at Delphi. Though distant, today's observance brings a traveling priestly delegation to the city, carrying sacred objects and performing rites that connect Athens to the wider Greek world. The streets are crowded with those eager to witness the rituals, merchants pausing to watch, women holding their children close. The delegation moves with measured grace, carrying small torches and incense burners, while the priests chant invocations that ripple through the air. You feel the rhythm of their steps, the cadence of prayer, and the scent of burning herbs, and for a moment, the city seems suspended between earth and sky. Inside the temple precinct, the air is heavy with incense, and the polished marble floor glows faintly beneath the early sun. The priests, robed in white, move with ritual precision. They sprinkle water on the sacred altar, lay out offerings of fruit and grain, and intone prayers that call Apollo's favor upon the city and its citizens. Observers bow, murmuring their own prayers, adding the strength of individual devotion to the collective act. You participate as quietly as you can, leaving a small offering of honey and barley, feeling the warmth of ritual connect your small household to the vast web of divine presence. Exiting the temple, you move through the marketplace, where preparations for the Panathenea continue. Stalls are draped in cloth dyed in deep blues and reds, fruit and nuts are arranged in neat, tempting displays, and small statues of Athena and other gods are set atop tables, awaiting offerings from passers-by. Musicians practice for upcoming processions, tuning lyres, flutes, and drums, their melodies weaving through the streets, carrying both celebration and solemnity. The city is alive, but in a rhythm unlike the daily bustle. This is the pulse of devotion, of preparation, of attention given to forces greater than any individual. In a shaded corner of the agora, a small group of citizens gathers around a public speaker, a philosopher known for his eloquence and subtle critique of traditional religious practice. Today, he speaks not to provoke outrage but to explore the nature of virtue, justice, and divine oversight. Consider, he begins, the deeds of our ancestors, the laws they enacted, and the gods who witnessed them. Virtue, or arete, is not merely a human concern. It resonates through the heavens, shaping our fates as surely as it shapes our actions. His words are carefully measured, acknowledging both the power of tradition and the allure of intellectual inquiry. The crowd listens, nodding at some points, murmuring quietly at others. Philosophy exists in delicate balance with ritual in Athens, never replacing devotion but enriching understanding. You continue on your path toward the city gates, where a small procession is already forming. Young men, recently initiated into the Ephebic training program, stand in formation. They carry spears and shields, and their instructors move among them, correcting posture and offering encouragement. The young soldiers will soon swear the Ephebic oath, promising to defend the city, uphold its laws, and honor the gods. Their preparation is both physical and moral, for in Athens, civic duty and religious devotion are inseparable. The oath invokes gods and heroes alike, calling them as witnesses to the commitment of each youth. You watch quietly, feeling the weight of continuity, the unbroken chain linking past, present, and future. Nearby, a small shrine dedicated to Hermes catches your attention. Travelers pause to leave offerings, children place coins in small boxes, and merchants murmur prayers for safe trade. You kneel, leaving a honey cake at the base of the pillar. Hermes, guardian of boundaries, commerce, and communication, oversees transitions, both literal and metaphorical. Today, the offering feels especially significant. You have experienced unsettling dreams, seen portents in the storms, and witnessed the delicate interplay of human intention and divine influence. Hermes' favor, you hope, will guide you through the uncertainties of the day. From the crossroads, you move toward the Kerameikos, the city's cemetery. A family is preparing a third-day observance for their recently deceased relative. Libations of wine, honey, and milk flow through hollow tubes into the earth, garlands are arranged carefully, and small gifts are placed near the stone markers. You participate quietly, offering a simple prayer and a small token. In Athens, the living maintain a delicate relationship with the dead, ensuring proper rest and honor, while the deceased remain an active, if unseen, part of the community. Ritual binds the living and dead in mutual responsibility, a connection both comforting and profound. Leaving the cemetery, you return to the agora, now bustling fully. Merchants call out their wares, children dart between legs, and the air is thick with the sense of food, incense, and sweat. You pause at a fountain to collect water, joining a small cluster of women in conversation. They discuss religious obligations, family matters, and the stories circulating about those condemned for impiety, like Diagoras of Melos. Even in casual conversation, the presence of the divine shapes discourse. The gods are invoked as witnesses, guides, and sources of moral authority. The afternoon grows warm. You decide to visit the temple of Asclepios, god of healing. A wounded traveler has been brought here, his companions chanting prayers as they carry him toward the sanctuary. Within, priests perform purifications, administer herbal remedies, and oversee the patient's rest in the sacred precinct. Healing in Athens is both practical and divine. blending empirical knowledge with ritual observance. You watch quietly, reflecting on the balance between human skill and divine oversight. The patient's recovery depends as much on careful treatment as on the favor of Asclepios, a constant reminder of the intertwined nature of mortal effort and divine will. As the day wanes, you return to your home. The streets quiet slightly, though some still bustle with preparation for evening festivals and communal meals. You pause at a small shrine to the hero Theseus, placing a token and whispering a prayer for courage and guidance. Heroes occupy a unique space in the Greek imagination, more than mortal, less than divine. They embody virtue, bravery, and wisdom, offering models for human behavior and serving as intermediaries between mortals and gods. Your prayer is not grand, but sincere, a recognition that even small acts of devotion maintain a connection across time and space. Evening descends fully, and the city prepares for the festival. Oil lamps flicker in homes and along streets, casting long shadows. Fires crackle in hearths, and the aroma of cooking fills the air. Families gather for meals, leaving portions for the gods, performing ritual handwashing, and offering thanks for sustenance and protection. You follow these practices, feeling the rhythm of life intertwine with the divine, the small gestures of daily devotion linking you to the city, its history, and its unseen overseers. Finally, night arrives in full, the sky dark but glittering with stars. You pause to gaze upward, noting the constellations and their associated myths. To your eyes, these patterns are not random, but signs of cosmic order, expressions of divine presence in the heavens. The movements of the stars, though beginning to be tracked systematically by astronomers like Eudoxus, still carry meaning and guidance. You breathe deeply, letting the vastness of the sky remind you of both the power and the intimacy of the divine. You return home, tending the household shrine one last time before sleep. Small offerings of water and barley are placed, whispered prayers leave your lips, and you settle onto your bed. The day's events, full of rituals, observation, and reflection, linger in your mind. You close your eyes, letting the rhythm of the city, the presence of the gods, and the comfort of ritual guide you into rest. Dreams, perhaps shaped by Morpheus, may bring guidance, warning, or reflection, continuing the dialogue between mortal and divine that defines life in Athens. Sleep comes slowly, as if aware of the sacred presence that persists even in darkness, and you drift into the quiet, meditative world of night, the city and its gods holding you gently in their care. The first light of morning filters through your window once again, revealing the pale wash of dawn across Athens. Today is the festival of the Hephaestia, dedicated to Hephaestus, the god of metalworking, fire, and craftsmanship. The city smells faintly of smoke and molten metal even before you leave the house, carried on the cool morning breeze from the workshops clustered near the agora. Artisans and their apprentices already labor at forges, hammering bronze and iron, the rhythmic clang echoing through narrow streets. Even the smallest sound feels sacred today, a reflection of divine labor manifest in mortal skill. Before leaving your house, you pause at the household shrine, performing the usual morning libations to Hestia and Hermes. Today, you add a small offering of incense for Hephaestus, knowing that the god honors diligence and skill as much as devotion. You linger over the flame, letting its warmth reach your hands, the smoke curling upward like a bridge between the human and divine. Even in private moments, ritual structures your day, reminding you that every action, no matter how ordinary, occurs within the watchful presence of the gods. The streets are alive with preparations. Merchants display offerings of small metal figurines and tools, garlands of flowers are draped across temple steps, and musicians practice ceremonial songs that will accompany the festival procession. You notice apprentices carrying bundles of iron and bronze to the temple of Hephaestus, their movements careful, as if aware that the god observes not just the work's outcome but the intent behind it. Women sweep steps, arrange flowers, and prepare baskets of fruit and wine. Even children are drawn into the rhythm of the festival, carrying small candles or helping to place offerings at local shrines. You move toward the temple, passing through a crowded market square where civic announcements are made and debates held. Today, the space feels sacred as well as social. Citizens pause to watch, their attention divided between the mundane and the divine. A public herald proclaims news of the festival, reminding the city of both the schedule of rituals and the ethical reflections they inspire. The festival is not merely for celebration, it embodies the interweaving of craft, civic pride, and religious observance. To honor Hephaestus is to honor the hands and minds that maintain the city, the artisans whose labor is both practical and sacred. Entering the temple precinct, you observe the priests arranging altars with offerings of honey, wine, and small metal tools. The smell of incense blends with the faint tang of heated metal from nearby forges, forming a sensory reminder that divinity is both present in ritual and manifest in skilled human labor. You place your own small token, a bronze pin carefully crafted by a local smith, at the altar, murmuring a prayer for diligence, skill, and perseverance. Around you, worshippers kneel or bow, some silently, some speaking softly to the god, asking for protection of their tools, success in their trade, or the blessing of inspiration. Outside the temple, the city begins to move in procession. Artisans carry banners depicting Hephaestus at his forge, children walk with small torches, and musicians play steady rhythms on drums and flutes. You join the throng of citizens, feeling the slow cadence of movement, the smell of flowers and incense, and the subtle vibration of communal devotion in the air. As the procession winds through the streets, you notice how the festival blurs the boundaries between the civic and the sacred. Merchants who are usually focused on profit display public generosity, children learn ritual gestures, and the city itself becomes an offering, a living testament to the intertwined nature of human effort and divine favor. After the procession, the city gathers for the ceremonial dedication of a newly forged bronze statue, a depiction of Hephaestus at his anvil. The sculptor, flanked by apprentices, steps forward to present the work. Smoke curls from small burners at the statue's base as the priests sprinkle water and chant invocations, sanctifying both the art and its creator. The crowd murmurs appreciation, understanding that the god is honored not only in prayer but in the act of creating, in the discipline, precision, and vision that the sculptor demonstrates. You feel a sense of awe, a reminder that human skill itself, disciplined and offered to the divine, becomes a bridge between mortal and immortal. In the afternoon, the festival continues with a display of crafts from across Athens. Metalworkers demonstrate forging techniques, potters show intricate decoration, and weavers display finely woven textiles. The city is alive with admiration for skill and devotion, and conversations often return to reflections on virtue and arete. People debate not merely who works the finest bronze or the most beautiful fabric, but what it means to excel in craft, in thought, and in moral conduct. Excellence is not merely technical, it is ethical, a demonstration of harmony between human effort and divine principle. You pause at a small fountain, watching water spill in steady, soothing streams. Around it, women wash their hands and fill jars for the evening meal, children splash briefly to cool themselves, and travelers pause to rest. Water, so mundane and so vital, has its own sacred associations, invoking Poseidon, the nymphs of springs, and local spirits. Even the most ordinary moments, quenching thirst, washing hands, filling a jar, become acts layered with significance when observed in a city attuned to divine presence. You reflect on the ways Athens embodies both grand ritual and everyday devotion, showing that holiness is not confined to temples but inhabits streets, homes, and workshops. Later, you decide to visit the city's library, a modest structure compared to modern notions but filled with scrolls and texts carefully copied by scribes. Philosophers, students, and curious citizens move quietly between shelves, discussing ethics, rhetoric, and natural phenomena. Today, a teacher lectures on the virtues of Heracles, the hero whose labors embody strength, endurance, and cleverness. Students listen, some taking notes on wax tablets, others asking questions that link mythic exemplars to their own lives. Here, intellectual and moral cultivation is framed as a form of devotion, a way of aligning human reason with divine order. As afternoon wanes, the city quiets in anticipation of evening rituals. Fires are lit, altars prepared, and the smell of roasting meat and simmering stews fills the streets. Households perform their customary libations before meals, offering portions to gods and ancestors, asking for protection, health, and guidance. The practice is routine yet profound, structuring the rhythm of life, ensuring that every meal, every household, participates in the sacred. Even as commerce resumes, social interaction unfolds, and children play, the city remains under the attentive gaze of the gods, each act potentially a blessing or a risk depending on intent and devotion. As dusk falls, the festival culminates in a public sacrifice at the temple of Hephaestus. A bull is led to the altar, its movements deliberate and careful. Priests intone prayers, the crowd watches with solemn reverence, and the sacred fire consumes offerings of grain and wine alongside the animal sacrifice. Smoke rises high, carrying prayers and devotion into the evening sky. Observing the ritual, you reflect on the duality of Greek religious practice, the balance between tangible action, like the precise crafting of bronze, and symbolic gestures, like offering a life to honor divine power. Both are essential, entwined threads of a single, complex system. Night deepens, the city settling into quiet punctuated by the occasional song, laughter, or the closing of doors. You walk home slowly, noting small shrines along the way, the flickering lamps, and the distant hum of evening conversation. At your household shrine, you make one final offering, simple but sincere, acknowledging the day's completion and the favor of gods and ancestors alike. Ritual, devotion, and reflection have structured your day, linking the smallest gestures with the city's grand rhythms, the mortal with the immortal, the immediate with the eternal. You lie down to sleep, the sounds of the city softened by distance, your mind replaying the day's festivals, observations, and reflections. Dreams may visit, carrying guidance, warnings, or echoes of divine presence, just as they did last night. The divine, in Athens, never fully sleeps. Even in rest, one exists within a web of sacred forces, observing, guiding, and shaping human endeavor. In the quiet of night, you feel the subtle hum of a city and a cosmos alive, a world where every action, thought, and word resonates with meaning, divine and mortal intertwined. The morning sun rises pale and cool, slipping over the rooftops of Athens and spilling gold across the stone streets. Today is the festival of Apollo Pythios, one of the city's most solemn occasions, commemorating both the god of prophecy and the sanctuary at Delphi. The city is quiet in the early hours, but the temples and altars along your path are already alive with movement. Priests sweep courtyards, incense curls from bronze censers, and offerings of fruit, honey, and oil glimmer in the light of the dawn. Citizens carry baskets, their faces reflecting a mixture of devotion and anticipation. You pause at your household shrine, offering the usual libations of wine and honey, sprinkling crumbs of bread in honor of Hestia and Athena. Today, you add a small coin to the altar for Apollo, a token acknowledging the god's guidance and wisdom. The act feels both intimate and communal, a private gesture intertwined with the citywide observances that will unfold. Even the simplest ritual reminds you that no day in Athens is secular. Every action is situated within a web of divine presence, guiding, judging, and influencing the mortal sphere. Stepping into the agora, you find it transformed by the festival. Temporary altars are set up along the main streets, and merchants display garlands and small statues of Apollo. Musicians practice the hymns that will accompany the processions, their flutes and lyres echoing through the open squares. Citizens gather in groups to discuss matters of the festival, their voices carrying the excited cadence of anticipation. Unlike the larger Dionysian festivities, the Apollo festival emphasizes reflection, prophecy, and the ethical lessons embedded in divine guidance. It is a day of contemplation as much as celebration. You join a group moving toward the central sanctuary, where a procession is forming. Young men carry laurel branches, symbolizing victory and divine favor, while women bring baskets of fruit and small libations. The city moves as a single organism, each citizen contributing to the ritual, consciously or unconsciously reinforcing the sacred order. Observing the procession, you reflect on the nature of civic religion in Athens. Festivals like this unite citizens, reinforce ethical and moral norms, and affirm the city's collective identity, all while honoring the gods. At the sanctuary, priests and priestesses prepare for the main ceremony. An altar has been constructed from marble, its surface polished to a reflective sheen. Wine, honey, and incense are laid out in precise patterns, each gesture following centuries-old prescriptions. A young acolyte approaches, leading a lamb, the offering for Apollo's favor. The animal stands calmly, its presence a tangible reminder of the link between the mortal and the divine. You observe quietly as the priests begin the ritual prayers, their voices rising and falling in a rhythm that seems to echo across time itself. After the sacrifice, the divination begins. A priest examines the entrails of the lamb, tracing the lines of the liver and lungs with meticulous attention. Other priests consult bronze tripods and inscribed lots. You watch the observers' reactions, anxiety, hope, reverence, all tightly wound around the interpretation of divine signs. In Athens, politics, war, and personal decisions are inseparable from such rituals. The same citizens who will later debate civic matters now look to the divine for guidance, acknowledging that human judgment is limited and fallible. Walking through the festival grounds afterward, you encounter a storyteller seated on a low platform, recounting the myth of Phaeton, who dared to drive the chariot of the sun and fell to his death. The story draws a crowd of children and adults alike. The moral clear: human ambition must be tempered by respect for divine law. Such tales, performed aloud, educate and reinforce ethical norms. They serve as reminders that the gods are ever-present observers, their power felt in both natural and social orders. Even the most ordinary citizen internalizes these lessons, shaping choices and behavior with divine precedent in mind. You decide to visit a nearby healer's sanctuary, dedicated to Asclepius, the god of medicine. The air is thick with the smell of herbs and incense. Patients lie on beds arranged in orderly rows, some murmuring prayers, others sleeping in ritual incubation. Priests move quietly among them, administering treatments that combine practical remedies with spiritual guidance. A young woman approaches you, seeking guidance for a minor ailment. You observe as the priest pours water over a sacred stone, chants an invocation, and applies an herbal poultice. The Greeks do not see a contradiction in seeking both divine favor and natural solutions. Medicine and piety coexist seamlessly. As midday approaches, you join a small gathering of citizens at a shaded courtyard near the temple. Discussions turn to the city's upcoming military ventures. The Sicilian expedition looms in conversation, and men speak cautiously, weighing the advice of generals against omens received at various sanctuaries. You hear arguments both practical and religious. One man cites unfavorable entrails, while another cites the wisdom of Athena, invoking prudence and strategic thought. The interconnection between faith and civic life is unmistakable. The gods are not abstract. They influence the timing, strategy, and morale of the city. Returning home, you notice small acts of devotion along your path. A woman places a garland on a roadside herm, a boy lights a candle at a household shrine, a group of men whispers a prayer before a small altar in the market. Athens is alive with ritual in both grand and subtle forms. Even commerce is suffused with sacred attention, as merchants offer a portion of proceeds to Hermes and Hestia, acknowledging that profit, fairness, and divine oversight are inseparable. In the evening, the festival reaches its artistic expression. A performance in an open-air theater draws citizens of all ages. A tragedy recounts the story of Oedipus, exploring fate, hubris, and the consequences of defying divine law. The audience reacts visibly, laughing, gasping, and murmuring at appropriate moments. Theater is both entertainment and moral education, a means of contemplating human experience through the lens of divine order. Your mind lingers on the characters' choices and the interplay between mortal decision and divine intervention. Dinner at a friend's home offers a quieter counterpoint to the citywide festival. The meal is simple but carefully prepared, meat and vegetables served alongside olives, bread, and wine diluted with water. As customary, portions are offered to Hestia, and a brief prayer is made for the family's safety and health. Conversation flows from politics to recent philosophical debates. One guest recalls Anaxagoras' discussions on the nature of the cosmos, and another counters with stories of divinely ordained events, illustrating the ongoing tension between reason and tradition. After the meal, you wander the streets once more, watching the city settle for the night. Lamps flicker in homes, altars glow softly, and the sounds of laughter, conversation, and distant music drift through the air. The festival has left a subtle imprint. Citizens walk with a sense of reflection, awareness of divine oversight, and a renewed understanding of their roles within both the mortal and immortal spheres. Even in sleep, dreams may carry guidance or warnings, messages from gods whose presence never fully recedes. As you return home, the final act of devotion calls. A small offering of honey and wine is placed at your household shrine. You linger, allowing the ritual to frame your thoughts, connecting the day's experiences, from the processions and sacrifices to the lessons in storytelling and theater, with the ongoing presence of the divine. Life in Athens is a continuous negotiation with powers beyond human control, yet suffused with opportunities for moral and practical excellence. You lie down at last, the stars bright above, constellations telling their own stories, reminders of divine vigilance and the cosmic order. You drift toward sleep, carrying the day's images, the forge, the altar, the theater, and the sanctuary, knowing that each reflects a larger truth, that human life, work, and morality exist within a universe alive with divine presence, where every action, thought, and intention resonates beyond the mortal sphere. The following morning begins with a cool, misty dawn. You wake to the distant tolling of the temple bells and the soft cries of early risers moving through the narrow, winding streets. Today is the festival of Athena Polias, guardian of the city, one of Athens' most important civic celebrations. The atmosphere is thick with anticipation. Merchants prepare their stalls with offerings of grain, honey, and garlands. Priests sweep courtyards, incense rising in delicate spirals. Young men practice hymns in the open squares. The city hums with a rhythm both sacred and social. You pause first at your household shrine, offering the customary libations of wine and honey to Hestia and Athena. Today, your prayers are more specific, directed toward Athena Polias, seeking her favor for wisdom, protection, and insight into the decisions that lie ahead for both your household and the city. Small, deliberate gestures, crumbling bread into the flame, a whispered prayer, anchor you to the rituals that structure Athenian life. These acts, though private, mirror the public devotion that will soon unfold. Stepping into the agora, you notice the streets already crowded with citizens preparing for the festival. Temporary altars are arranged, and processions are being organized. Women, carrying baskets of offerings and garlands, move with practiced grace, their expressions a mixture of reverence and anticipation. Men, some clad in ceremonial robes, confer quietly with priests about the order of the processions. The air is thick with the scent of incense, freshly cut flowers, and baking bread. You are struck again by how civic and religious life intertwine in Athens. Commerce, social interaction, and devotion are inseparable. The procession begins mid-morning. Citizens march toward the Acropolis, carrying offerings for Athena. Young women lead the way, weaving intricate garlands, their movements echoing patterns passed down for generations. Behind them, men carry olive branches and small bronze statues, tokens of their devotion and skill. As you walk alongside the procession, the harmony of sight, sound, and scent is overwhelming. The rhythmic drumming, the lilting flutes, the colorful robes, the gleam of offerings in the sunlight. The festival is not only a religious observance but a vivid demonstration of civic unity, an affirmation of the city's wealth, culture, and shared values. At the Acropolis, priests and priestesses conduct the primary rituals. The main altar, constructed from polished marble, gleams under the sun. Wine, honey, and fruit are laid out meticulously, each arrangement guided by centuries of tradition. A young lamb, prepared for sacrifice, stands calmly as the priests begin the ceremonial prayers. The air is charged with a sense of anticipation and gravity. Observers watch closely, knowing that the favor of Athena Polias is both protective and moral. She safeguards the city while exemplifying wisdom, justice, and courage. The sacrifice completed, The acolytes present the entrails for inspection. Priests and diviners interpret patterns, examining each detail for signs of Athena's approval or warning. Some citizens murmur quietly, others bow heads in solemn reflection. You observe a young man, preparing for military service, who listens intently, eyes wide, absorbing every nuance of the divination. His future, like that of many citizens, is perceived as intertwined with divine guidance. Decisions in war, politics, and even personal matters are never made in isolation. They exist under the watchful eyes of the gods, whose favor or displeasure is considered both tangible and consequential. You wander the Acropolis grounds, pausing before a small shrine dedicated to Hephaestus, god of craftsmen and fire. Here, artisans leave offerings of miniature tools and metalworks, tokens representing their skill and devotion. Nearby, a sculptor kneels, carving intricate reliefs into a marble slab while murmuring prayers for guidance and success. Religion is inseparable from daily labor. Artisans, farmers, and traders all acknowledge the divine in their work. Even mundane actions, a potter shaping clay, a merchant weighing silver, carry spiritual significance. Each task performed properly and ethically reflects an alignment with divine order, a microcosm of civic harmony. As the day progresses, you decide to visit the local gymnasium, a center not only for physical training but also philosophical discussion. Young men practice wrestling and discus, their movements precise, echoing the ideal of virility, excellence in all forms, both physical and moral. Philosophers and teachers lounge in shaded porticos, debating ethics, politics, and the nature of the gods. Today, the conversation turns to the civic role of Athena. One teacher argues that her wisdom informs political decisions, guiding the city toward justice. Another counters that human reason and strategy are sufficient, invoking examples of successful generals who consulted logic over ritual. The debate is lively but respectful, reflecting Athens' unique blend of democratic dialogue and religious reverence. After training, you make your way to a small shrine outside the city dedicated to Hermes. The Herm, a simple pillar with the god's head, marks a crossroads and serves as a protective presence for travelers and merchants. You place a small offering, a honey cake purchased from a nearby vendor, and whisper a prayer for safe passage. Others do the same, moving silently or speaking their intentions aloud. The shrine, though modest, is a focal point for daily devotion, a reminder that the divine permeates even ordinary journeys. Hermes, with his role as guide, communicator, and protector, embodies the practical and personal dimensions of Greek religion. Lunch is taken at a friend's home. A modest meal of fish, bread, olives, and wine, served with customary offerings to Hestia, allows time for reflection and conversation. Discussions range from politics to philosophy, religion to personal affairs. One guest recounts a recent court case, emphasizing the interplay between divine law and human judgment. Homicide, as always, is both a legal and religious concern, requiring ritual purification alongside legal punishment. The conversation reinforces the inseparability of civic life and divine oversight. Even mundane civic matters are understood through the lens of religious morality. As afternoon falls, you head toward the theater district. A tragedy is being performed in honor of the festival. Citizens recline on stone benches, rapt with attention as the play unfolds. The story recounts the consequences of hubris and defiance against the gods. The actors' gestures, the chorus lament, and the stagecraft combine to offer both emotional catharsis and moral instruction. Theater, in Athens, is not mere entertainment. It is a medium for exploring ethics, divine will, and human action. You reflect on the lessons of the narrative, considering how the interplay of fate, choice, and divine influence shapes every aspect of life. Returning home as evening descends, the city is quieting. Lamps are lit in homes, small shrines glow softly, and the scent of evening offerings drifts through the air. You pause before your household altar, making a final offering to Athena Polias and Hestia. Each gesture is deliberate, honey and wine poured, crumbs of bread scattered, a whispered prayer for protection and guidance. The day's experiences, the processions, sacrifices, athletic training, philosophical debates, and theatrical performance coalesce into a cohesive understanding of civic and divine life. In Athens, religion is not a compartmentalized domain but an all-encompassing framework guiding action, morality, and community. Before retiring, you consider the festival's broader significance. Festivals like Athenopolia's intertwine civic pride, moral education, artistic expression, and divine reverence. They reinforce communal identity, ensuring that every citizen recognizes the obligations of participation, respect, and devotion. Even private acts of piety, when aligned with public ritual, strengthen the moral and social fabric of the city. The god's presence is constant, through dreams, divination, sacrifices, and observation of the natural and social world. They inform human decision-making, provide ethical exemplars, and ensure continuity across generations. Finally, you lie down to rest, reflecting on the intricate tapestry of life in Athens. The stars emerge above, constellations reminding you of myth, moral lesson, and divine watchfulness. Dreams may bring guidance, warning, or reflection, continuing the dialogue between the mortal and immortal realms. You drift to sleep with a sense of continuity and connection, understanding that every action, choice, and ritual carries weight in the eyes of both the city and its gods. Life in Athens is a delicate balance of human agency and divine presence, of civic responsibility and personal devotion, of reflection, celebration, and ethical engagement. The next morning, sunlight filters through the narrow streets, casting long shadows across the stone and mud brick buildings of Athens. Today is a day of commerce, civic activity, and subtle religious observances, though no major festival dominates the calendar. You wake early, perform your household rituals, and step outside into the bustling streets. The agora is alive with vendors setting up tables, arranging produce, pottery, textiles, and small votive offerings for sale. Children run along the thoroughfares, balancing chores with play, while elderly men linger near fountains, discussing politics, philosophy, and the latest local news. The city breathes a rhythm that intertwines the mundane and the sacred, commerce, conversation, and devotion moving in concert. As you approach the central marketplace, a small group of citizens gathers around a notice posted on a wooden board. The herald's staff pounds against the ground, drawing attention. Today's announcement concerns military recruitment. Young men of certain age brackets must assemble for inspection and training in preparation for the city's ongoing campaigns. Even such administrative notices carry religious undertones. Sacrifices and divination accompany military preparations, for the god's favor is deemed essential to victory and survival. A hush falls over the crowd as the implications settle in. Service to the city is both civic duty and sacred responsibility. You wander through the agora, observing the interplay of commerce, devotion, and social interaction. A vendor offers fresh figs and olives, invoking blessings to Demeter and Dionysus, hoping that divine favor will attract customers and ensure abundant trade. Nearby, a small shrine to Hermes is adorned with fresh offerings, coins, small figurines, and trinkets left by merchants and travelers seeking protection and success in their journeys. You leave a modest honey cake and murmur a brief prayer, following the customary practice that intertwines the divine with daily transactions. Near the center of the agora, a teacher of rhetoric, one of the city's sophists, addresses a small crowd. His words are both provocative and instructive. "Consider the nature of truth," he declares. "Are our gods the arbiters of reality, or do they reflect the desires and fears of humankind? If man is the measure of all things, how shall we navigate morality, law, and piety?" His audience listens intently, some nodding in agreement, others frowning at the suggestion. Philosophical inquiry, while respected, is constrained by the boundaries of civic and religious expectation. Those who cross them, like Socrates, risk not just social disfavor but legal penalties for impiety. You move on to a nearby temple dedicated to Asclepius, god of healing. The sanctuary, a blend of practical medicine and divine devotion, hums with activity. Patients wait their turn, hoping for both ritual and empirical remedy. Priests conduct purification ceremonies, burn incense, and lead supplicants through prayers, while physician priests examine wounds, prescribe herbal treatments, and oversee recovery. A wounded traveler, his leg bandaged from a recent skirmish, sits quietly, offering thanks to Asclepius for survival and relief. The dual approach of medicine and religion is typical of Greek practice, reflecting a worldview in which human skill and divine favor operate side by side. You continue toward a small park outside the city, where youths engage in athletic training. Discus, javelin, and wrestling are practiced with meticulous attention to form and technique. Physical excellence is inseparable from moral and civic education. Arete, or virtue, is cultivated in body, mind, and spirit. In the shaded porticos, philosophers and older men debate ethical questions, observing the younger athletes while discussing the ethical dilemmas that govern personal and civic life. The connection between athletics, morality, and religion is evident. A disciplined body, guided by ethical principle, reflects divine favor and contributes to the city's welfare. A small commotion draws your attention near the edge of the park. A procession of women moves quietly, carrying offerings of fruit, flowers, and small statues to a shrine dedicated to Demeter. They walk in silence, solemnity marking their steps. Today is not a major festival but a minor seasonal observance tied to agricultural cycles. The women's devotion underscores the role of gender in religious practice. While men dominate political and military spheres, women exercise authority and influence in ritual spaces, shaping the city's moral and spiritual fabric. You pause, observing their careful gestures, the whispered prayers, the offerings laid with precision and reverence. Returning to the city center, you witness preparations for a dramatic performance at a small theater. Actors rehearse lines from a tragedy, moving with precision and intensity. Citizens will gather in the evening to watch, absorb moral lessons, and experience catharsis. Theater, in Athens, functions as both entertainment and civic religious education. Heroes on stage, often confronting the gods or fate, serve as exemplars of virtue and cautionary figures. As you watch, you consider how these performances, combined with public rituals, athletic competitions, and philosophical debates, reinforce the intertwined values of morality, civic identity, and divine presence. Midday approaches, and you visit a small workshop of a sculptor friend. He shows you a new relief depicting the gods at Mount Olympus, Athena prominently in the center, her shield and owl emphasizing wisdom and protection. Each stroke, each chiseled detail is both artistic and devotional. Sculptors, potters, and artisans view their craft as participation in divine order, replicating the forms, ideals, and virtues of gods and heroes in tangible material. You place a small offering near his workbench, a symbolic acknowledgement that skill and devotion cannot be separated. By late afternoon, the sound of flutes and drums signals another procession, this one dedicated to Dionysus. You observe from a distance, mindful of the more ecstatic and potentially dangerous rites. Women move in frenzied, trance-like dance, garlands and ivy entwined in their hair. The air is thick with excitement and tension. The city recognizes the fine line between divine ecstasy and human danger. For all the measured civic rituals of Athens, Dionysian celebrations remind citizens of the unpredictable, untamed aspects of life and divine power. Reverence here is mingled with awe and caution. As evening falls, you join a small dinner gathering in a private home. The meal is modest: fish, bread, and vegetables, accompanied by diluted wine. A brief ritual precedes the meal, libations poured to Hestia and the household gods. Conversation flows easily from civic matters to philosophical questions, from divine justice to human behavior. One guest recounts a legal dispute, emphasizing the importance of religious observances in the courtroom and in civic administration. Another speaks of recent omens interpreted by the city's diviners, considering their implications for upcoming campaigns. Religion, law, and politics are seamlessly intertwined, each influencing the other. After the meal, the company moves into a relaxed discussion of poetry and philosophy. A young man recites verses honoring heroic deeds, linking the city's past glories to present civic responsibility. The elder participants critique, refine, and discuss the moral implications of each line, demonstrating how literature, ethics, and religious education coexist in Athenian culture. The evening ends with a quiet toast to the gods, an acknowledgement that while human skill, judgment, and courage are vital, ultimate success depends on divine favor. Night deepens, and you walk home beneath a sky filled with stars. The constellations, familiar and meaningful, remind you of myth, morality, and the gods' pervasive presence. Dreams will follow, carrying potential messages, warnings, or reflections of divine will. Before retiring, you pause at a small shrine to Hermes, leaving a final honey cake for protection and guidance. Each day, though repetitive in its rituals, carries unique experiences, reinforcing civic, moral, and divine order. The day in Athens concludes with a sense of continuity and connection. Citizens, gods, heroes, and rituals bound together in a cohesive framework of life, morality, and social responsibility. Every interaction, choice, and prayer is part of a larger tapestry where religion, civic duty, and personal virtue intersect. Sleep comes with the awareness that dreams, omens, and divine presence will continue to guide, caution, and inspire. Athens is a city where human endeavor and divine oversight coexist, shaping identity, morality, and destiny. Dawn arrives slowly over Athens, painting the Acropolis in gold and rose hues. The city awakens, stirred by the clatter of footsteps on stone streets, the bleating of goats, and the calls of vendors preparing for the morning market. Today feels different. A quiet tension underlies the usual bustle, for word has spread of new developments in the Sicilian campaign. Soldiers and citizens alike whisper anxiously as you make your way to the agora. The marketplace is alive, yet subdued. Merchants arrange goods carefully, aware that the news of war and divine omens weighs heavily on minds already attuned to the gods' presence. At the center of the agora, a herald pounds his staff, commanding attention. Citizens of Athens, he calls. The council has decreed a day of supplication to Zeus and Athena. All are invited to the temple precincts at midday to seek divine favor for the city's endeavors abroad. The announcement draws murmurs of assent and concern alike. Military campaigns are inseparable from religion. No general moves without the omens, and no citizen participates without acknowledging the gods' oversight. As you move through the market, you notice offerings already being prepared for transport, garlands, libations, and small figurines, all intended to appease the gods and ensure success. You pause to observe a group of young men practicing spear drills in an open square near the gymnasium. Their instructor emphasizes not just strength and precision, but virtue and courage, arete in action. The physical discipline mirrors civic expectations. Excellence in the body reflects excellence in character. Nearby, a small altar dedicated to Athena presides over their training. The goddess's wisdom and strategic insight are invoked as the youths sharpen both mind and muscle. A passerby offers a quick prayer to Hermes, seeking safe passage should the youths be called to serve in distant campaigns. The intertwining of religion, civic duty, and personal development is evident in every gesture. The sound of flutes and cymbals drifts from a nearby street, drawing your attention to another procession. This one is led by women carrying baskets of flowers, wine, and small cakes, dedicated to Demeter in a minor harvest festival. Their movements are careful and deliberate, each step a ritual act of devotion. Observing from a respectful distance, you notice how the city recognizes spaces where women wield authority in religious practice. They may not participate in the assembly or command armies, but in ritual life, their power is tangible. The devotion displayed here ensures fertility of the land, continuity of families, and the favor of the gods who govern the cycles of life and sustenance. By mid-morning, you make your way toward a small theater tucked behind the agora. Actors rehearse a new tragedy, lines echoing across stone walls. Today's performance explores themes of hubris, divine justice, and civic responsibility, eternal questions in a city where human and divine governance intersect. The playwright's work emphasizes the consequences of impiety, the dangers of excessive pride, and the obligations citizens bear toward gods and one another. These performances, though artistic, serve as moral and civic instruction, reminding audiences of both personal and communal responsibilities. Emerging from the theater, you notice a commotion near a well-traveled road leading to the Acropolis. A group of citizens has gathered around a young soldier preparing for departure to the front lines. His armor gleams, and he kneels briefly before a small shrine to Ares, whispering prayers for courage and protection. Friends and family place hands on his shoulders, whisper blessings invoking Athena for wisdom in battle, Hermes for safe passage, and Hestia for protection of the household left behind. Even in the mundane act of departure, divine oversight suffuses the city. Courage, loyalty, and prudence are inseparable from piety and devotion. You continue past the Acropolis to the sanctuary of Asclepius, god of healing. The site is bustling. Wounded soldiers, farmers, and travelers seek both ritual and empirical remedies. Priests and physician priests guide supplicants through purification, offer sacrifices, and prescribe herbal treatments. A man recovering from a broken leg sits quietly, reflecting on the dual nature of healing, divine aid paired with human skill. Nearby, a woman arranges offerings to Asclepius, hoping for the recovery of a sick child. The city's approach to medicine exemplifies the Greek tendency to combine practical solutions with religious reverence, ensuring that neither human action nor divine favor is neglected. By noon, you return to the Agora to witness the supplication to Zeus and Athena. Citizens form a solemn procession toward the temple precincts. Sacrifices of sheep and goats are prepared, libations poured, prayers chanted. The air is thick with the aroma of incense, roasting meat, and the hum of collective devotion. Priests interpret omens from the entrails, while others observe the flight of birds, offering counsel to the city's leaders. The god's favor is seen as essential to the success of the Sicilian campaign, and every gesture, every prayer, carries weight. In this intricate dance of ritual, politics, and military planning, civic life and divine oversight are inseparable. After the ceremony, you wander toward the Kerameikos, Athens' main cemetery, where a family performs offerings at a recently erected grave marker. Libations of wine, honey, and milk flow into the earth through specially prepared channels, while garlands are placed around the tomb. Family members speak softly to the deceased, recounting daily life and promising continued care. Observing these rites, you recognize how Greeks maintain ongoing relationships with the dead, integrating remembrance into civic and domestic life. Proper burial and continued offerings ensure that the deceased may rest peacefully, protecting both their soul and their descendants from divine retribution or lingering pollution. On your return to the city center, dark clouds gather, and the first drops of a sudden storm begin to fall. Citizens rush for shelter, some hurrying to small temples along the streets to offer prayers to Poseidon, god of the sea, for protection from floods and tempestuous weather. You take refuge beneath a colonnade, observing an elderly man interpreting the thunder and lightning. 3 claps from the east, he announces confidently, signify Zeus' approval of the assembly's recent decree. A long rumble from the north portends caution. Weather, like all natural phenomena, is read as a message from the divine, a sign to guide human action. Professional seers and philosophers debate the meaning, yet even those favoring natural explanations rarely dismiss the gods entirely. As the storm abates, the streets become a glistening network of puddles reflecting sunlight and rooftops. You make your way to a small shrine dedicated to Theseus, legendary hero of Athens. The modest structure surrounds what is traditionally held to be his remains, returned from Skyros. Bronze weapons, terracotta plaques, and votive offerings decorate the shrine, evidence of continued devotion and admiration. A young man kneels before the altar, whispering prayers for courage before embarking on military service. Theseus embodies ideal qualities of intelligence, justice, and bravery, virtues that citizens seek to emulate. Arete, excellence in all forms, is a constant pursuit in both divine and human realms. Late afternoon finds you at a friend's home for a modest dinner. The meal is simple, yet prepared with care: bread, fish, vegetables, and a little meat from a recent sacrifice. Libations precede the meal, honoring Hestia and household gods. conversation flows from politics to philosophy, weaving through religion, civic duty, and personal conduct. A guest recounts the story of a trial for impiety, reminding all present of the dangers of questioning traditional beliefs too openly. Others discuss the divine interpretation of recent omens or the moral lessons found in tragedies. Religion is a constant thread, binding discussions, shaping conduct, and guiding decisions. After dinner, the gathering turns to poetry and music. Young men recite epics, weaving myth and history together. The audience critiques, interprets, and draws moral lessons, understanding these performances as both art and ethical instruction. Heroic deeds on stage provide examples of virtue, caution against hubris, and illustrate the consequences of impiety. The evening deepens, and final libations are poured to the gods. Each gesture reinforces the interplay of civic, moral, and divine order. As night settles, you walk home beneath a sky dotted with constellations. Patterns in the heavens, Orion, the Pleiades, and the Great Bear, offer reassurance, lessons, and reminders of divine presence. Stars are more than navigation tools. They are moral and mythological symbols, celestial markers of human and divine action. At home, you perform evening rituals at the household shrine. Libations poured, prayers whispered, a final moment of reflection binds the day's experiences. Civic duty, moral contemplation, and divine guidance are inseparably intertwined. Sleep will come, carrying dreams whose messages may require interpretation. The city of Athens, alive with commerce, philosophy, religion, and civic engagement, settles into quietude. Citizens sleep under the watchful gaze of gods, heroes, and ancestors. Their lives are structured by cycles of ritual, labor, and reflection, each day a tapestry where divine and human realms overlap. Tomorrow promises new challenges: political deliberation, military preparation, philosophical inquiry, and ritual devotion. Yet tonight, the city rests, cradled in the belief that piety, virtue, and attentiveness to divine guidance secure both personal and communal well-being. Morning in Athens breaks with a soft light that filters through the narrow streets, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. The scent of fresh bread mingles with the tang of the sea, carried on a gentle breeze from the Piraeus harbor. Today, the city feels charged with anticipation. Word has spread that envoys from various city-states will arrive to confer with the Athenian assembly. Diplomacy, war, and religion converge once more in the bustling heart of the polis. You dress quickly, performing your morning household rituals with meticulous care, offering prayers and libations to Hestia, Zeus, and the ancestral spirits who watch over the family. As you step into the streets, the agora is alive with activity. Merchants call out their wares, fresh vegetables and fish piled high on tables, while bronze coins jingle in the hands of eager buyers. At one corner, a group of citizens gathers around a public water clock, its steady drip marking time and drawing attention for the announcements of the day. A herald, staff in hand, proclaims that the envoys will present themselves at the stoa of Zeus Eleutherios at midday, and citizens are invited to attend, both to witness and to offer petitions for the city's favor. The melding of civic and religious life is evident. Divine presence is assumed in every public act, and political decisions are inseparable from ritual observance. You pause to observe a group of young men practicing in the palestra nearby. Their movements are precise, each thrust of the spear, each step in the footwork, a careful balance of strength and technique. Their instructor reminds them that excellence in the body reflects excellence of character, arete in practice. As they train, a small altar to Athena presides over their exercises. The goddess's wisdom is invoked to guide strategy, while Ares's courage is sought for the heart in battle. Nearby, a young woman, likely preparing for a minor festival, carries garlands to adorn the altar. Religion and civic duty intertwine seamlessly, instructing both men and women in virtue, albeit in different roles. The streets grow more crowded as midday approaches. A procession winds through the agora, led by women carrying offerings for a festival in honor of Demeter. Flute players accompany them, while the participants chant prayers for fertility, abundant harvests, and the continuity of life. You notice the authority these women wield in ritual practice. Outside the home, their influence may be limited, but in the religious sphere, their actions carry profound weight. The city recognizes that divine favor is mediated through their skill and devotion. You step aside respectfully, observing their deliberate movements and careful gestures, each laden with meaning. Drawn toward the stoa of Zeus Eleutherios, you find citizens gathering in hushed anticipation. Envoys from Corinth, Megara, and other states have arrived, bearing gifts and messages, their robes dusted from travel along sun-baked roads. The assembly prepares to convene, and priests stand at the ready, examining the entrails of sacrificial animals for signs of divine approval. The gods must be known before decisions with far-reaching consequences are made. A solemn hush falls over the crowd as a priest interprets the omens. Favorable signs from the east, a warning bird from the south. Whispers pass through the crowd. Success in diplomacy and war is believed contingent upon adherence to divine guidance. You make your way closer to the center of the stoa, where officials and citizens of prominence take their positions. The envoys present their petitions, their words carefully chosen, mindful that divine sanction, civic law, and rhetorical skill all influence outcomes. Listening, you reflect on the inextricable link between religion and politics in Athens. Decisions about war, trade, or alliances are never purely pragmatic. The favor of the gods is essential. Leaders consult oracles, interpret omens, and offer sacrifices before committing to action. Public debate is itself a ritual, a form of homage to the divine order that governs human affairs. After the formal proceedings, you wander back toward the agora. There, a group has gathered to witness a demonstration by a sophist, a professional teacher of rhetoric and philosophy. The man gestures energetically, invoking Protagoras. Man is the measure of all things. He challenges listeners to consider the nature of the gods. Are they objective forces, or projections of human desires and fears? His words provoke murmurs and careful glances. While intellectual exploration is admired, boundaries are strictly observed. Charges of impiety loom over those who push too far. Socrates himself faced trial for such challenges, illustrating the tension between inquiry and orthodoxy. By early afternoon, you find yourself at the sanctuary of Asclepius, the god of healing. The sacred precinct buzzes with activity. Wounded soldiers, farmers, and travelers await both ritual and practical care. Priests and physician-priests guide supplicants through purification, offer sacrifices, and prescribe herbal treatments. A soldier with a recent arrow wound sits quietly, reflecting on the combined power of divine aid and human skill. Nearby, a mother arranges offerings for her sick child. The dual approach to healing, ritual devotion paired with practical treatment, is typical of Greek practice, illustrating the integration of religion and empirical knowledge. You linger briefly to observe the rituals: libations poured, incense burning, supplicants whispering prayers. The god is invoked not only for physical healing but also for psychological reassurance, a tangible manifestation of hope. Medicine is not divorced from belief. Efficacy arises from the union of faith, skilled care, and careful observation. The city itself thrives on this balance between practical knowledge and divine guidance, ensuring that citizens can navigate both material and spiritual dangers. Later, you move toward the Kerameikos cemetery to witness funeral rites for a prominent citizen. Family members perform libations into specially prepared channels, placing garlands and small gifts at the tomb. They speak softly to the deceased, recounting daily life and promising ongoing care. Proper burial and continued offerings ensure that the deceased may rest peacefully, while protecting the living from divine retribution or lingering pollution. Observing these rites, you note how the Greeks maintain ongoing relationships with the dead, integrating remembrance into civic, domestic, and religious life. As evening approaches, you return to the city center. Storm clouds gather on the horizon, and rain begins to fall, prompting citizens to seek shelter. Some hurry to small temples, offering prayers to Poseidon for protection. Under a colonnade, you listen to an elderly man interpret the thunder and lightning. 3 claps from the east, he says confidently, signify Zeus' approval of the assembly's decree. A distant rumble warns of caution. Weather is interpreted as a divine message, guiding human action. Philosophers and seers debate interpretations, but even rationalists rarely dismiss divine influence entirely. Once the storm subsides, you visit a modest shrine to Theseus, the legendary hero. The small temple contains relics, bronze weapons, and terracotta plaques depicting his exploits. A young man kneels before the altar, praying for courage before departing for military service. Heroes serve as models of virtue, arrayed in action. Their presence reinforces civic ideals, connecting myth, morality, and practical life. Each prayer, libation, and offering strengthens the city's moral and spiritual fabric. Night falls and you attend a small dinner at a friend's home. The meal is simple yet carefully prepared: bread, fish, vegetables, and a small portion of meat from a recent sacrifice. Libations are poured before eating, honoring Hestia and other household gods. Conversation flows through politics, philosophy, morality, and divine law. Guests recount recent trials for impiety, divine omens, and moral lessons from tragedies. Religion structures discussion, shaping civic behavior and personal ethics. Poetic recitations follow, blending myth, history, and moral reflection. The evening concludes with final libations, prayers, and reflection, binding civic, moral, and divine order. Walking home beneath a star-filled sky, you note constellations: Orion, the Pleiades, the Great Bear. The patterns are not merely navigational aids but divine signs, symbols of myth and moral order. At home, you perform evening rituals, offering libations and prayers at the household shrine. Each action, though small, reinforces a life guided by divine attention, civic duty, and personal virtue. The city sleeps, yet vigilance continues. Through dreams, omens, and prayers, the gods' influence remains inescapable. Athens rests, its citizens entwined with divinity in every act. Civic governance, military preparation, philosophical inquiry, and ritual observance coexist seamlessly, each dependent on the other. The daily rhythm of devotion, reflection, and communal activity ensures that life flows within an ordered, sacred framework. Tomorrow will bring new decisions, new challenges, and new opportunities to balance human initiative with divine favor. Yet tonight, the city is at peace, cradled in faith, virtue, and attentive care for both the living and the dead. Dawn arrives slowly, painting the marble columns and narrow streets of Athens in pale gold. The city is quiet, except for the occasional clatter of a donkey cart or the rhythmic hammering from the workshops in the potter's quarter. Today, however, carries a heightened sense of urgency. Word has spread that the fleet bound for Sicily will soon depart, and men of military age are required to present themselves at the Temple of Ares for inspection. The tension in the air is palpable, interwoven with the everyday rhythm of markets, religious offerings, and civic duties. You begin your morning with ritual cleansing at the household shrine. Water is poured, incense burned, and prayers murmured to Hestia, Zeus, and your ancestors. Each gesture is deliberate, a subtle reaffirmation of your connection to the divine and the past. Your thoughts drift to the young men preparing for departure, particularly those who have trained under the guidance of Athena's wisdom and Ares' courage. The city depends on them, but the dangers of war, amplified by omens and divine will, loom heavily. Stepping into the streets, you encounter the usual bustle of vendors and citizens, yet today there is an underlying tension. Parents accompany sons to the Temple of Ares, some visibly anxious, others proud. The temple itself is a grand structure, its stone columns etched with scenes of past victories, sacrifices, and divine intervention. Priests stand at the entrance, inspecting the omens and guiding families through preliminary rituals. Each recruit is anointed with olive oil, a symbol of strength and purification, and offered a short prayer to Ares and Athena for protection and strategic insight. In the courtyard, older veterans demonstrate weapon techniques, overseeing the recruits' performance. Their presence reinforces the notion that courage and skill are inseparable from divine favor. A priest interprets the flight of birds overhead, noting the favorable eastward movement of a flock, signaling divine approval. Nearby, a young recruit clutches a small charm dedicated to Hermes, asking for safe passage. The convergence of practical preparation and religious observance permeates every action. It is not enough to train, one must also align with the god's will. After observing the preparations, you wander toward the agora, where the marketplace is abuzz with both daily trade and preparations for festival observances. Artisans set up temporary stalls, displaying small votive offerings for upcoming celebrations. Children run past, laughing, some carrying garlands intended for household altars. The smell of baking bread and roasted fish fills the air. Everywhere, religion and daily life intertwine. A small shrine to Apollo catches your attention, adorned with fresh flowers and a garland of olives. Travelers and locals alike pause to offer brief prayers, asking for guidance, healing, or wisdom. Passing through the agora, you notice a crowd surrounding a public speaker, a sophist challenging the conventional understanding of justice, divine will, and morality. He invokes Protagoras and questions whether the gods dictate justice or whether it is a human construct. Citizens listen attentively, some nodding in agreement, others frowning in disapproval. Intellectual curiosity thrives in Athens, but boundaries are evident. Those who push too far risk charges of impiety, exile, or death. Socrates' recent trial remains a cautionary tale, a reminder of the limits imposed by tradition. You continue to the Kerameikos cemetery, where funeral rites are underway for a recently deceased merchant. The family performs libations into specially constructed channels in the earth, placing small gifts and garlands at the tomb. They speak softly, recounting daily events and promising continued care. The Greek belief that the psyche retains awareness beyond death shapes these rituals, blending personal devotion with civic respect for the dead. Each offering and gesture is a reinforcement of community ties, family continuity, and divine favor. The cemetery is a living testament to how life, death, and religion are inseparably linked. As mid-morning approaches, a storm gathers on the horizon. Clouds darken, and a sudden gust of wind carries the first droplets of rain. Citizens scurry for cover, many heading to nearby temples to offer prayers to Poseidon and Zeus. Under a covered colonnade, you observe an elderly man interpreting the thunder and lightning, declaring that Zeus favors certain civic decisions but warns caution in others. Even natural phenomena are read as divine communication, guiding the actions of citizens and officials alike. Philosophers, while seeking natural explanations, rarely deny the gods outright, and most ordinary citizens accept their authority unquestioningly. By late morning, you arrive at the sanctuary of Asclepius, where the sick and wounded receive both practical and divine care. A woman tends to a child suffering from fever, offering libations and herbal remedies simultaneously. Soldiers recovering from battle wounds wait patiently, undergoing purification rituals before receiving treatment from physician priests. The integration of medicine and religion illustrates a holistic worldview. Physical health, spiritual well-being, and divine favor are inseparable. Observing the care provided, you reflect on the enduring balance between empirical knowledge and faith in the divine. Returning to the heart of the city, you encounter a procession in honor of Demeter, celebrating fertility and the cycle of life. Flute players lead women carrying offerings, their chants echoing through the streets. The ritual authority these women wield contrasts with their limited public roles elsewhere. Religion provides spaces where gendered hierarchies are temporarily suspended, and women exercise significant influence. The festival underscores the interdependence of divine favor, civic prosperity, and social cohesion. As afternoon wanes, you decide to visit a small shrine to Theseus. The modest temple contains relics, bronze weapons, and terracotta plaques depicting his legendary exploits. A young man kneels before the altar, praying for courage before military service. Heroes like Theseus serve as moral exemplars, bridging human endeavor and divine sanction. Each prayer and offering strengthens communal identity, personal virtue, and the city's moral fabric. Observing the young man, you reflect on the role of hero cults in connecting citizens to mythic pasts and shared values. The day concludes with a small symposium at a friend's home. The meal is simple: bread, fish, vegetables, and a modest portion of meat. Libations are poured for Hestia and other household gods before the meal. Conversation flows seamlessly between topics of politics, philosophy, morality, and religious practice. Guests recount recent trials for impiety, omens interpreted by priests, and lessons drawn from tragedies. Poetry and music follow, reinforcing cultural continuity and civic values. Each action, gesture, and discussion affirms the interconnectedness of civic, moral, and divine order. Night falls, and you make your way home through quiet streets. The sky is clear, and the stars shine brightly, arranged into constellations that map myth and morality. Each pattern is not random but carries divine significance. At home, you perform evening rituals at the household shrine. Water is poured, incense burned, and prayers offered. Each gesture is a reaffirmation of life guided by divine attention, civic responsibility, and personal virtue. Even in sleep, dreams and omens may convey guidance or warning, ensuring that divine presence is never far. As you drift into sleep, the rhythm of Athens, the intertwining of political duty, religious devotion, civic responsibility, and personal virtue echoes in your mind. The gods oversee all, from the smallest household offering to the grandest naval expedition. Tomorrow will bring new duties, new challenges, and new opportunities to balance human initiative with divine favor. Tonight, the city rests, cradled in ritual, virtue, and attentive care for both the living and the dead. The seamless integration of daily life and divine oversight, of morality and civic action, continues to shape Athens, a city perpetually aware of the gods' omnipresent gaze. The morning begins with a pale light filtering through the narrow streets of Athens, glinting off the worn marble steps and terracotta rooftops. The city is stirring, carts rumble over uneven stone streets, vendors shout their wares, and the aroma of freshly baked bread mingles with the tang of the sea carried on the wind from the Piraeus harbor. Today is a day of civic and religious complexity, a combination of festival preparation, military dispatch, and ordinary market life. You begin at the household shrine, performing the standard morning libations. Olive oil is poured over the small bronze statues of Hestia and Zeus, incense curls upward, and soft prayers are murmured for protection, prosperity, and divine favor. Stepping outside, the streets are already alive. A group of children carries small garlands toward the Temple of Athena, where a minor festival honoring the goddess's wisdom and martial guidance is scheduled. Women sweep the steps of nearby shrines, humming prayers under their breath, while a few older men discuss the news from the Peloponnesian front. Athens is a city alive with both routine and extraordinary events. The lines between daily life, civic duty, and religious observance are always permeable. You decide first to visit the Piraeus harbor to observe the preparations for the Sicilian expedition. The docks are a maze of activity. Ships are being provisioned with grain, wine, and water. Carpenters make last-minute repairs to masts and hulls. Rowers stretch their arms and practice coordinated strokes on smaller vessels. The air is thick with salt and smoke from fires used to pitch the hulls, and sailors and soldiers shout instructions over the din. Priests walk among the crews, performing sacrifices of small animals to secure divine protection for the fleet. The head priest raises the entrails for inspection. Favorable omens from the liver indicate that the gods will grant a safe voyage and victory. Among the soldiers preparing to board, you notice a young man nervously fingering a small charm dedicated to Hermes. He will not see his family for months, perhaps years, and his anxiety is palpable. A veteran pats his shoulder, advising him to trust in both training and the gods' favor. The intertwining of divine guidance and practical skill is evident here. No soldier expects success purely through personal effort or purely through prayer. Both are required, and both are respected by those around him. Leaving the harbor, you make your way to the Agora, the bustling heart of Athens. Stalls are crowded with merchants selling fruits, vegetables, pottery, and small votive offerings for the upcoming festivals. A young woman offers honey cakes and miniature figurines of Artemis, while nearby, a group of men discuss the latest political decrees. At the center, a public speaker draws a crowd, expounding on the ethical obligations of citizens and the moral foundations of law, drawing frequent references to Zeus and the Furies. Such speeches are reminders that religion is inseparable from civic life. Moral and legal order is validated and enforced through divine oversight. Near the market's edge, a small shrine to Demeter captures your attention. A family leads a sheep garlanded with flowers, accompanied by flute players. They will sacrifice the animal in gratitude for a bountiful harvest. Ritual purity is paramount. The priest ensures that the animal is spotless, that the offerings are arranged with precision, and that prayers are correctly recited. The festival underscores the integration of divine favor, agricultural success, and social cohesion. Even minor errors in ritual performance could be interpreted as potential sources of divine displeasure, reminding citizens of their constant duty to maintain harmony with the gods. Mid-morning, you wander to the sanctuary of Asclepius to witness the dual approach to healing common in Greek culture. Patients lie in quiet chambers, awaiting incubation, ritual sleep in which dreams may reveal cures or divine guidance. Others receive practical treatment, bandages applied to wounds, poultices of herbs, and attentive care from priest-physicians. A man carrying a spear wound from a skirmish nearby is led into a small room. His companions kneel and pour libations before the altar. Observing these practices, it becomes clear that medicine and religion are not mutually exclusive but complementary. The Greeks recognized both the limitations of human skill and the necessity of divine favor in recovery. By afternoon, the streets swell with festival-goers. The city prepares for a procession honoring Apollo, whose blessing is sought for both civic prosperity and personal fortune. Young men carry laurel branches, women place offerings of honey and wine, and musicians play flutes and lyres. Priests chant prayers and interpret the flight of birds to determine whether the gods approve of the proceedings. The sense of collective purpose, devotion, and civic pride is palpable. Festivals are not merely religious events. They are a binding force, ensuring social cohesion, cultural continuity, and civic identity. In a quieter corner of the city, you visit the shrine of Theseus. The modest temple houses relics, small bronze weapons, and plaques depicting heroic exploits. A young man kneels before the altar, praying for courage and wisdom before embarking on military service. Heroes occupy a liminal space between mortal and divine. They are models of virtue, valor, and strategic thinking, and citizens seek their guidance in moments of uncertainty or danger. Offerings and prayers at such shrines strengthen personal virtue, reaffirm communal values, and maintain continuity with the mythic past. As dusk approaches, you return to the agora, where evening offerings are being prepared. Merchants display festival foods, cakes, figs, roasted fish, and families pause at small shrines to leave honey, wine, and fresh garlands. The city's rhythms, guided by civic, religious, and personal imperatives, continue seamlessly into evening. The interaction of ordinary daily tasks and extraordinary ritual observances underscores the extent to which the divine permeates all aspects of life. Night falls, and you attend a small symposium at a friend's house. The meal is modest, but wine flows, diluted with water as custom dictates. Conversations range from politics to philosophy to moral questions regarding divine justice. Guests recount recent trials for impiety, discuss the proper interpretation of omens, and reflect on the duties of citizens in war and peace. Poetry, storytelling, and music follow, reinforcing cultural continuity, ethical reflection, and civic identity. Each gesture and conversation is steeped in a sense of moral and religious order, a reminder that all aspects of life, from the mundane to the extraordinary, are embedded within a larger cosmic and civic framework. Finally, walking home through quiet streets, you pause to observe the stars. Constellations serve not only as navigational aids but as visual stories of myth and morality. Patterns of light in the sky are signs of divine favor or warning. At home, you perform evening rituals at the household shrine. Water is poured, incense burned, prayers offered. The cycles of life, ritual, and reflection ensure that both you and your household remain in alignment with the God's will. Even in sleep, dreams may bring omens, guidance, or warnings, emphasizing the omnipresence of the divine in human affairs. As the city sleeps, you reflect on the interconnectedness of all life in Athens. The gods govern everything: the harvest, health, military campaigns, justice, civic order, and personal virtue. Each action, whether pouring wine at a shrine, participating in a festival, studying philosophy, or engaging in commerce, is part of a delicate equilibrium that maintains both human prosperity and divine favor. In this world, the boundary between mortal initiative and divine oversight is never clear, and yet this uncertainty provides both structure and opportunity. Life in Athens is a continual negotiation, a balance between duty, piety, and personal aspiration. The sun rises over Athens, casting long shadows across the city's white marble temples and red-tiled rooftops. Today, the city feels unusually tense. The Sicilian expedition looms over public consciousness, and even casual conversation is punctuated with speculation and apprehension. You begin your day with the usual morning libations at the household shrine, offering honey, olive oil, and fresh water to Hestia and Zeus. These small rituals, repeated daily, anchor life in a rhythm both personal and divine, establishing a sense of continuity and security amidst the uncertainties of civic and military affairs. Stepping outside, the streets are alive with movement. The agora, usually a place of commerce and casual discussion, now thrums with anticipation. Citizens debate the wisdom of the Sicilian campaign, referring often to the omens and recent reports from the Delphic oracle. Priests and seers, standing on small platforms, interpret bird flight, the shape of clouds, or the entrails of sacrificed animals. The religious dimension is inseparable from the political. Any major decision, from war to founding a colony, is mediated through divine consultation. A small crowd gathers as a priest announces that favorable signs have been observed for the expedition, eliciting murmurs of relief and approval. Curious, you decide to follow a group of young men on their way to the military training grounds outside the city. They are carrying spears and shields, their tunics neatly arranged, faces a mixture of excitement and anxiety. The older men, veterans of prior campaigns, offer advice and encouragement. One stops to touch a small amulet of Athena, whispering a prayer for wisdom and strategy. The blending of personal devotion, civic duty, and preparation for military service is striking. Every soldier is expected to embody irate excellence, both in courage and in judgment, an ideal inseparable from the god's favor. Near the training grounds, a small shrine to Hermes marks a crossroads where young soldiers pause to leave offerings. Hermes, as guide of transitions and protector of travelers, ensures their safe passage and success. A young man places a small honey cake at the base of the herm, murmuring a prayer for guidance. Nearby, a group of recruits practices spear formations and shield maneuvers under the watchful eye of a trainer. The sounds of commands, clashing wood, and the occasional grunt of exertion fill the air. Watching this, you note how training, devotion, and civic obligation are intertwined. Mastery over physical skill alone is insufficient without moral and religious grounding. Returning to the city, you visit the Temple of Apollo, where preparations for the festival of Apollo Delphinius are underway. Musicians tune their lyres, dancers rehearse intricate steps, and priests arrange offerings of wine, fruit, and small figurines. The festival serves multiple purposes, honoring the god, reinforcing civic identity, and providing a stage for public display of wealth, skill, and piety. You pause to watch a group of young men practicing recitations of Homeric verses. The Iliad and Odyssey, though ancient, continue to shape moral and religious understanding, teaching proper conduct, respect for the gods, and the consequences of hubris. A small boy watches wide-eyed as an older reciter emphasizes Achilles' wrath, nodding with solemn understanding. The afternoon brings a quieter rhythm. You walk toward the Kerameikos cemetery to visit a friend overseeing funeral rites for her recently deceased father. Funerary customs remain essential to Greek belief. Souls require proper burial and continued remembrance to find peace in the underworld. Today is the 9th day observance, a crucial step in this ritual cycle. You help her carry offerings, libations of wine, honey, and milk, and place garlands around the tomb. As she speaks to the deceased, updating him on family affairs, you feel the profound intertwining of past and present. The dead, in Greek understanding, remain active members of the community, their welfare connected to the living through ritual and remembrance. Exiting the cemetery, you notice storm clouds gathering. The sudden shift in weather is interpreted by many as the expression of Zeus's will. Thunder and lightning signify divine anger or approval. Citizens rush to smaller temples or covered walkways, offering prayers to Poseidon for protection against storms at sea, or to Zeus for the city's continued prosperity. Observing these responses, you recognize the Greeks' constant negotiation with forces beyond their control. Both natural and divine events are understood as interconnected, requiring careful interpretation and appropriate ritual action. Seeking a moment of introspection, you make your way to a small shrine dedicated to Theseus on the outskirts of the city. The modest structure contains relics, miniature weapons, and plaques illustrating his mythical feats. A young man kneels before the altar, requesting courage and wisdom before military service. Hero cults, though local in scope, provide citizens with models of virtue and exemplars of moral and civic excellence. Unlike Olympian gods, heroes maintain a bridge between myth and daily life, offering guidance and inspiration grounded in the historical and legendary past of their communities. Evening approaches and you attend a symposium at a friend's home. Slaves serve a simple meal of fish, vegetables, and small portions of meat, accompanied by diluted wine. Guests recline on couches, engaging in discussion ranging from politics to philosophy to ethical questions regarding divine justice and civic responsibility. Stories of impiety trials, debates over omens, and ethical dilemmas highlight the inseparable nature of morality, law, and religion. Poetry, storytelling, and music form an essential part of cultural expression, providing both entertainment and moral instruction. The conversation gradually shifts to reflections on upcoming military campaigns, philosophical speculation on divine nature, and the role of virtue in civic life. As night falls, you leave the symposium and walk through quiet streets, pausing to observe constellations overhead. Stars are not merely celestial bodies but embodiments of myth, moral exemplars, and signs of divine favor. Astronomy and astrology, philosophy and religion blend seamlessly. The heavens are a guide for both practical and ethical decisions. At home, you perform evening rituals at the household shrine. Olive oil is poured, incense burned, prayers whispered. Even in sleep, dreams may convey divine messages, offering guidance, warning, or reflection. Morpheus, the god of dreams, might send visions that intertwine personal anxieties with cosmic realities, highlighting the ever-present influence of the divine. Before retiring, you reflect on the city's rhythms. The Sicilian expedition, civic festivals, hero worship, medical and religious healing, philosophical debate, and ordinary domestic rituals all form an intricate web of interconnection. Each element, whether mundane or extraordinary, reinforces the others. Religion, civic duty, personal virtue, and social cohesion are inseparable. Life in Athens is structured around the omnipresence of the divine, which frames not only human action but also interpretation of natural phenomena, moral behavior, and civic identity. Even as sleep overtakes you, the city's energy persists in your mind. The gods are everywhere, guiding, judging, nurturing, and punishing. Actions are never purely human. Decisions carry both practical and spiritual weight. Civic, familial, and personal life intersect constantly, ensuring that each choice resonates beyond its immediate context. Observing these patterns, you gain a deeper appreciation for how the Greeks navigated existence, negotiating the boundaries between mortal initiative and divine oversight, between public duty and personal devotion. Each day is a careful balancing act, a harmonious dance of preparation, ritual, reflection, and ethical striving. Finally, you settle into bed, performing one last ritual libation at the household shrine. The stars above glitter faintly through an open window, reminding you that even in darkness, the cosmos remains a stage upon which mortal and divine interact. As your eyes close, you sense that life in Athens is neither simple nor predictable. Yet it is structured by a profound coherence. Civic life, religion, hero worship, philosophy, and familial obligations form a unified tapestry. The gods, heroes, and ancestors are present in every action, thought, and decision. In this intricate web, Athens thrives, and you, a participant in its rhythms, prepare to navigate another day filled with divine presence, civic responsibility, and personal challenge. The dawn rises gently over Athens, a muted light reflecting off the marble steps of the Acropolis and glinting on the red rooftops below. The city hums with a mixture of anticipation, anxiety, and devotion. Today, the streets are quieter than usual. Many citizens have departed for military service or distant religious observances. Birds flit across the agora, their calls a natural accompaniment to the human bustle that persists despite the absence of many. You rise early, as always, to perform your morning libations at the household shrine. Hestia receives honey, Zeus the offering of water, and a small portion of barley is scattered for Hermes. These rituals, though brief, ground your day in continuity, a reminder that the human and divine are inseparable. Stepping outside, the city feels both familiar and fragile. Athens is a living organism, its rhythms shaped by gods, heroes, and citizens alike. You observe a small group of young men preparing to depart for the Sicilian expedition. Their tunics are neatly folded, shields polished, and spears freshly sharpened. They move with the mixture of excitement, fear, and solemn duty that characterizes all who bear arms for the city. At a crossroads, they pause at a herm of Hermes. One places a small honey cake at the base, murmuring a prayer for guidance and safe passage. Another traces the carved face of the god, seeking reassurance. The rituals are simple but profound, an acknowledgement that mortal courage alone is insufficient without divine favor. Nearby, a small shrine to Athena stands. Women pass quietly, touching the sacred stones and whispering prayers for wisdom, protection, and prosperity. Athena's presence reminds all who visit of the intertwined values of intelligence, strategy, and moral virtue. Even as soldiers depart and civic matters unfold, the gods remain silent observers and active participants in the human drama. The city's heartbeat is visible in its people, merchants arranging goods for the day, children running through narrow streets, and elderly men discussing yesterday's debates at the agora. Athens thrives not just through power, but through devotion, memory, and careful attention to divine and civic order. You make your way toward the Kerameikos cemetery, seeking a moment of reflection amid the tombs. The ninth-day observances continue for many families, honoring the dead and ensuring that souls find peace. You watch as a woman pours libations of honey and wine, speaking softly to her deceased father. The living and dead share a delicate relationship, maintained through ritual, remembrance, and care. Heroes and ancestors alike remain ever-present, guiding, warning, or comforting those who remain. In this world, death is not the cessation of influence but a transformation, a shift in presence that still commands attention and devotion. By mid-morning, the city is preparing for another festival, this one honoring Apollo. Temporary wooden stands are erected for spectators, musicians tune lyres, and dancers rehearse elaborate movements. Citizens move with purposeful energy, placing offerings and making vows. The rituals are multifaceted, civic, religious, artistic, and ethical concerns blend seamlessly. You pause to watch young performers reciting Homeric epics. The Iliad and Odyssey remain foundational, offering moral instruction, religious insight, and civic exemplars. Lessons of hubris, divine favor, and heroic virtue resonate as strongly now as they did centuries ago, shaping not just thought but action. As afternoon stretches on, a sudden storm gathers over the Acropolis, dark clouds rolling in from the northwest. Citizens rush for shelter, offering prayers to Zeus for mercy and Poseidon for safety at sea. Observing these actions, you are reminded how deeply natural and divine forces intertwine. Rain is not merely a weather event but a sign, an expression of cosmic order and divine will. The Greeks' engagement with nature, whether through observation or ritual, is always framed by ethical and spiritual significance. In every decision, whether to sow crops, engage in battle, or offer a sacrifice, humans negotiate with forces beyond their control. In the late afternoon, you visit the small shrine of Theseus, where a young soldier kneels in prayer. Courage, intelligence, and moral excellence, Eurydice, are his appeals. Hero cults provide guidance, connecting communities to mythic pasts while offering models for contemporary behavior. Unlike the Olympian gods, heroes are localized, tangible, and immediately relevant. Their stories are not abstract lessons but lived exemplars whose presence in cult and ritual bridges past and present, mortal and divine. The young soldier's prayer ends, and he rises with renewed resolve, embodying the ideals that these myths and rituals instill in the living. Evening brings you to a symposium where conversation moves fluidly between politics, philosophy, and religion. Guests discuss ethical dilemmas, civic duty, divine justice, and the nature of the cosmos. Wine is shared, food consumed, and poetry recited. Philosophical speculation, always bounded by the prevailing expectations of piety, allows for critical reflection while remaining tethered to tradition. The stories of Socrates, Anaxagoras, and Protagoras serve as reminders of the tension between innovation and orthodoxy. Here, dialogue, learning, and community reinforce the social fabric while reminding all participants of their responsibilities to the gods, the polis, and themselves. Night falls over Athens, the streets quiet except for the occasional passerby. Stars shimmer overhead, constellations tracing mythic figures whose stories are inscribed in the heavens. Astronomy and divine interpretation converge. Celestial patterns offer guidance, warning, and inspiration. At home, you perform evening rituals at the household shrine, olive oil burning in small lamps, prayers whispered to the gods who govern life, death, and destiny. Even sleep is permeated with divine significance. Dreams, like those of Morpheus, may carry insight, prophecy, or moral reflection, reminding mortals that consciousness is never free from divine influence. As you lie down, the city itself seems to breathe, alive with ritual, duty, and devotion. The Sicilian expedition, civic festivals, philosophical inquiry, hero and ancestor worship, all coalesce into a living tapestry of human and divine interaction. Religion is inseparable from civic identity, moral responsibility, and personal virtue. The gods, heroes, and ancestors shape, guide, and evaluate human action. Every decision carries weight, both temporal and spiritual, and each individual is a participant in a complex network of obligation, aspiration, and ethical expectation. Your thoughts drift to the morning's events, the departing soldiers, the funeral rites, the observances at shrines, the symposium debates. You recognize that Athens thrives through this integration of devotion, civic action, and moral striving. Each day, the city negotiates with forces both visible and invisible, ensuring order, justice, and continuity. The past, present, and future intersect through ritual, memory, and the guidance of the divine. In this world, nothing is merely secular. Every action, conversation, and thought carries the imprint of moral, civic, and spiritual significance. Finally, as sleep overtakes you, you feel the presence of the divine all around. Hermes at crossroads, Athena guiding wisdom, Zeus overseeing justice, and heroes like Theseus exemplifying virtue. The city's heartbeat, the rhythm of festivals, the structure of civic and domestic life, and the constant awareness of mortality and divine influence converge in one profound understanding. Life in Athens is an intricate, ongoing dialogue between human initiative and divine oversight. In the delicate balance between duty and devotion, fear and aspiration, chaos and order, the city flourishes. The night is deep, but the world remains awake with potential. Dreams may reveal hidden truths or symbolic warnings. The gods may smile or frown. The heroes of legend continue to offer guidance. In this city, under these stars, you rest knowing that human life and divine presence are inseparable. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new prayers, new encounters with fate and fortune. But for tonight, the world is still, the gods are watching, and the rhythms of Athens continue unbroken, an eternal interplay of mortal striving and divine influence.